Chapter 265. Ever since he came to the fief, King Yu had never been spoken to like this. He was so angry that he was speechless. At this time, the servant who was left behind by King Yu ran over in a panic. King Yu was already terrified that he couldn't stop him. Seeing this scene, he directly knelt down. Shin Yu knew that he couldn't blame the servant. King Yu's identity was not a secret in the manor. If he really wanted to do something, the servant wouldn't dare to stop him. "You can leave first," Shin Yu said. The servant hurriedly retreated. With this interruption, King Yu was not so angry. He looked at the man standing beside the bed. From his memory, he remembered that it was the man he saw at the auction house. His eyes darkened. After not seeing Shin Yu for a few days, he couldn't help but be concerned about it now. Shin Yu was his possession. Of course, he wouldn't allow others to touch him. Who was this person? Shin Yu? King Yu looked away and looked at the young man who was wrapped in the quilt. "This is my private matter. Your Highness doesn't need to worry about it." Shin Yu's tone was slightly cold. "Your identity is special. Don't be deceived by some people with bad intentions." King Yu pointed out, "Not as good as Your Highness." Blocking the door, "Are you afraid that the cold wind won't come in and worsen a Yu's condition?" Shang Junlin ridiculed. King Yu also realized that something was wrong. He was a dignified king. What was he doing standing at the door? "Your Highness, please leave first." Seeing Brother Lin protecting him, Shin Yu's displeasure caused by King Yu's arrival gradually disappeared. It was strange. Since he got along with Brother Lin, he cared less about King Yu. He wouldn't be hurt by King Yu's actions like before. After calming down and thinking about it, he felt like he was possessed in the past. He had done so much for this person. Why am I the one going out and not him? King Yu pointed at Shang Junlin with an expression of disbelief. "I'm going to help you dress and wash up. What are you doing here?" Shang Junlin glanced at him indifferently. "I am a prince. Why would I do such a thing? Even if he had to do it, Shun Yu should be the one serving him. Then why are you staying?" With his back facing Shun Yu, Shang Junlin did not hide his sarcasm. After learning about what had happened to Shin Yu from the hidden dragon guards, Shang Junlin regarded Prince Yu as a dead man. Nothing could compare to the fact that Prince Yu had used Shun Yu. This was enough to sentence Prince Yu to death. King Yu's eyes suddenly widened. He couldn't be mistaken. He saw the clear killing intent in this person's eyes. Then, he looked at Shun Yu. The young man's expression was calm, as if he didn't know what was happening in the dark. Killing intent. He was just a merchant. Why would he want to kill him? Was it because of Shun Yu? Or was there another reason? When he looked over again, there was only provocation in the other party's eyes. It was as if the killing intent he felt earlier was just his imagination. "Why are you still standing here, Your Highness?" Shang Junlin asked again. Being provoked by a merchant with no status again and again, King Yu had already thought of hundreds of ways to torture this person. However, he couldn't bring himself to stay here any longer. He flung his sleeves and left. Shang Junlin walked over and closed the door. When he returned, he saw that the young man was staring at him without blinking. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Brother Lin, aren't you afraid of offending him?" Others might not know, but Shin Yu knew very well. King Yu seemed to be a tolerant person, but he was actually very calculative. Brother Lin had embarrassed him today, so he would definitely be targeted. What do I have to be afraid of? No matter how powerful he is only powerful in Yuezhou. Once he leaves Yuezhou, he can't reach out to the whole of Dahong. Shang Junlin didn't care. Of course, he wasn't afraid. His men had already started to take action. Soon, King Yu would be in trouble. How would he have the time to find trouble with others? Even if he really wanted to find trouble with him, there was nothing to be afraid of. It would be a waste if he didn't take advantage of this opportunity. That's true. However, you are in Yuezhou now. He is the master of Yuezhou. It would be easy for him to deal with you. Brother Lin, are you really not worried? Don't you still have a you? Shang Junlin helped the young man put on his clothes. "If I had nothing, I would have to beg you to take me in. I am strong and can work. I can be a servant in the residence. With me around, I won't let you end up like this." Brother Lin is right. King Yu isn't the true master of Dahong. It's not easy for him to hide the truth from the masses. Other things aside, as long as he did something, King Yu wouldn't be able to deal with Brother Lin. After all, to King Yu, compared to an insignificant merchant, his career was more important. As his most trusted subordinate, Shen Yu knew clearly what King Yu wanted to do. In the past, Shen Yu had walked the same path until the end. But now, he couldn't help but wonder if King Yu was really suitable for that position. Suppressing all kinds of thoughts, Shen Yu went to the study to see King Yu. King Yu came with a serious matter. Although he was sulking for a while, he didn't forget about it. After Shen Yu finished his greeting, he talked to him about it. The two talked in the study for more than 2 hours. After King Yu left, Shen Yu, who had been idle for a while, got busy again. After getting started, Shen Yu found that the things King Yu talked about were really tricky. Every step he took was at their pace. It was as if someone had leaked out every movement inside the residence. Shang Junlin found that Shen Yu was busy. He knew what Shen Yu was dealing with these days. Since Shen Yu took over, their progress had to slow down. Shang Junlin knew that Yu was extraordinary, but he was still surprised when he saw him. No wonder Shang Junyue could develop such a large-scale force in a short time. With Shen Yu's help, it was not surprising. Once again, he was busy until late at night. Shang Junlin brought hot food to the study. Seeing the young man's slightly haggard face, he felt distressed. Shen Yu was used to the company of a man in the middle of the night. He put down the pen and took a sip of the soup. Did anyone cause trouble to Brother Lin's shop? Shang Junlin shook his head. No. In fact, there were some who were dealt with by him. Those who wanted to attack him didn't dare to act casually. After instructing Shen Yu, King Yu kept an eye on the situation for a few days. Seeing that the chaos gradually calmed down, he was relieved. Now that the urgent matter was solved, he thought of the person who made him lose face several times. It was easy to deal with a businessman without any foundation in his fief. That man gave him a strong sense of threat. If he didn't deal with him, King Yu wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. The only difficult thing was to not let this matter become a barrier between him and Shen Yu. King Yu summoned his confidants to discuss how to deal with this person. There were many confidants who didn't get along with Shen Yu, but they all knew that now was not the time for internal strife. Take this matter for example. If it wasn't for Shen Yu, they didn't know how long it would take to solve it. So at this stage, everyone didn't want Shen Yu and King Yu to be at odds. After the discussion, some people who were close to Shen Yu secretly remembered this matter and planned to find a chance to leak the news to Shen Yu. Shen Yu's influence in King Yu's power was far beyond everyone's imagination. Not long after, Shen Yu received the news. The news was brought by Jiang Huiqing. Jiang Huiqing had Inghua and was well informed. He had been working for Shen Yu outside. Some time ago, he left Yuezhou for a period of time according to Shen Yu's order. He just came back 2 days ago. After reporting what Shen Yu asked him to do, Jiang Huiqing mentioned the news he just received. What do you plan to do, young master? Shen Yu rubbed the teacup in his hand. I thought that he would at least not touch my people because I solved such a big problem for him. It seems that I thought too much. King Yu has always been like this. He doesn't allow anyone to slander him. What young Master Lin did really violated his taboo. King Yu wants to secretly get rid of young Master Lin. Jiang Huiqing had been with Shen Yu for many years. He knew better than others how King Yu treated Shen Yu. Therefore, he knew that King Yu was more possessive of Shen Yu than others. Jiang Huiqing already knew what young Master Lin did from others. Except for exclaiming that young Master Lin was bold, he felt that young Master Lin was more pleasing to the eye than King Yu. But what he did also violated my taboo. Shen Yu lowered his eyes and said in a light tone, since he has the time to care about these trivial matters, let him not continue to be idle. Let some of those things leak out. It's time for these people to see their situation clearly. Shen Yu was talking about how King Yu's forces in other places in Dahuan were targeted. Shen Yu had already dealt with some of them in advance. The news didn't reach King Yu's ears. These people who were holed up in Yuezhou didn't know that their situation was far more dangerous than they imagined. Yes. Jiang Huiqing could feel that Shen Yu was really angry this time. At the same time, he was more and more curious about young Master Lin. What kind of person was he that could make his master go against King Yu? King Yu has already given the order. Young Master Lin might be in danger. Does young master want to send people to protect him? Yes, send some people over. Shen Yu also knew that Yuezhou was King Yu's fief. His people were everywhere. Unless he could send Brother Lin out of Yuezhou in the shortest time possible, he might be in danger at any time. Furthermore, based on what had happened in Yuezhou during this period of time, Shen Yu had dealt with the other party for a long time. He could more or less guess that the other party was sent by the imperial court. Other than the imperial court, no other force could do such a thing. He had already sent someone to warn King Yu. Whether or not he would be taken seriously was not something he could control. Shang Junlin received a message from his subordinate. The message said that King Yu suddenly became difficult to deal with. Moreover, the other party seemed to have discovered their existence and was secretly searching for them. Shang Junlin read the secret letter and burned it. He knew that King Yu became difficult to deal with because Shen Yu made a move. After tidying up his clothes, Shang Junlin walked out of the door. As usual, he planned to go out and meet the people he brought. He didn't expect to be stopped at the door. "Young master, this." The servant who was arranged to serve Shang Junlin didn't know what was going on. Shang Junlin looked at the guards in front of him and said with a strange tone, "Your young master doesn't allow me to leave the residence?" These two guards were also unfamiliar. Shang Junlin was sure that he had never seen them before today. One of them nodded. "Yes, young Master Lin, please don't leave for now." "Your young master didn't say the reason?" The guard shook his head. "Young Master Lin, please go back." Genius 1 second. Remember this website. www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website. mbq50. CC. Chapter 266. Shen Yu thought that his behavior would make the man unhappy. He didn't expect that the man would say something like this when he saw him. He observed the man's face and couldn't find any displeasure. He was a little confused. "Brother Lin, you're not angry?" He didn't say why he was angry. Both of them knew very well. "You thought that I would be angry. Why did he do this?" How could Shang Junlin be angry because of this? As long as Shen Yu wanted, he was willing to do anything. However, he was more concerned about one thing. Did he imprison him in the mansion simply to protect him from King Yu? Or did he find out something? With Shen Yu's intelligence, Shang Junlin didn't think that his behavior could be hidden from him. He didn't suspect him before because he trusted him for some unknown reason and didn't investigate carefully. Now that Shen Yu had fought with his men, it was inevitable that he would find some clues. Shen Yu looked at the man deeply. He seemed to want to say something. His lips moved, but he didn't say anything in the end. Shen Yu didn't know why he was hesitating. He didn't intend to imprison Brother Lin in the mansion. If it was just King Yu, he could just send someone to protect him. However, when he was dealing with those troubles, he found some clues that pointed to Brother Lin. Brother Lin was a businessman. How could he be involved in these things? Shen Yu didn't have time to think about it. He directly got rid of these traces. He didn't know what role Brother Lin played in this matter, but he knew that he didn't want Brother Lin to be killed by King Yu. "What does you want to say?" Seeing the change in the young man's expression, Shang Junlin's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that something was wrong. However, he wanted the young man to jump out of the mud pit of King Yu. It didn't matter if he found out. It would be convenient for his next action. "You offended King Yu before. Yuezhou is his fief. If you don't leave Yuezhou, you won't be safe outside. Just stay in the mansion for a while." Shen Yu had mixed feelings, but he didn't show it on his face. Shang Junlin had been paying attention to Shen Yu's expression. After hearing Shen Yu's words, he was unsure again. He suppressed all kinds of thoughts in his heart and said bluntly, "You wants to put me under house arrest?" "Brother Lin, didn't you just say that I'm hiding a mistress in a golden house?" "Let's take it that way then," Shen Yu said calmly as he put away the various thoughts in his mind. Of course, he knew that Brother Lin was joking, but he felt that this excuse was gentler than the naked truth. He did not tear open the truth when he just felt the warmth, so he would just treat it as him deceiving himself. Hearing this, Shang Junlin's eyes darkened. He took a few steps forward and approached Shen Yu. The distance between them was infinitely shortened, and the young man's thin body was shrouded under his body. "I'll take Yu's words seriously." The man's eyes were filled with strong emotions, and his voice was low and hoarse. For a moment, Shen Yu felt a strong sense of oppression, but it was only for a moment. In the blink of an eye, it dissipated without a trace. Xinyu raised his eyes and stared at the man. The man's eyes seemed to be filled with stars, and it was very tempting. "You, do you know what this sentence means?" The man lowered his head and moved closer. His breath sprinkled on Xinyu's exposed skin, causing him to tremble. Xinyu calmed down. Brother Lin's appearance really makes people want to hide a mistress. It's a pity that my mansion is not a golden house, so I'll have to trouble Brother Lin to condescend. Do you like my current face? Catching the strange expression on the man's face, Xinyu was puzzled. Why? Then do you like Prince Yu's face? Shang Junlin asked again. Xinyu was even more puzzled. Does Brother Lin care about this? How could Shang Junlin not care? He appeared in front of Xinyu in a disguise. His current face was very different from his original appearance. He had never thought about what to do if Xinyu liked his current face more. "Young master, someone outside the mansion wants to see you." The appearance of the servant broke the deadlock between the two. Xinyu pushed the man. "I'll deal with other things first." Shang Junlin let go of him. He was still thinking about the problem just now. Once again, he felt that it would be better to deal with Prince Yu's matter as soon as possible. He just didn't know if Yu would be angry after knowing the truth. The person who came to see Xinyu was one of Prince Yu's confidants. He worked for Prince Yu before Xinyu. Before Xinyu came, he was very important. After Xinyu appeared, Prince Yu didn't use him as much as before. Therefore, he had been very dissatisfied with Xinyu. This time, he came here because he knew that the people around Xinyu had offended Prince Yu, so he came to look for trouble. We are supposed to share Prince Yu's worries. You've worked for Prince Yu for so long. How can you not understand this? I think, since Prince Yu didn't say anything, it's not up to you to interfere in this matter, right? Xinyu didn't give a good face to this person. I will deal with my people. I don't need you to say anything. If there is no other business, I have a lot of business to deal with recently. Forgive me, I don't have so much free time to waste here. The person who came wanted to find trouble with Xinyu. As a result, he was so angry that he fell on his back. He regarded Xinyu as a competitor, but he didn't know that Xinyu didn't put him in his eyes at all. Servants couldn't hide secrets. In less than a morning, everyone in the mansion knew about what happened in the morning. Young Master, have you thought it through? You don't want Prince Yu anymore and want young Master Lin? What's so good about Prince Yu? He's not as handsome or considerate as young Master Lin. If young Master really wants to be with someone, he should be with someone like young Master Lin. Yes, but young Master's behavior is really unexpected. What did young Master Lin do to make young Master Lin unhappy? Now he doesn't even let people out of the mansion. It's better for us not to guess too much about the Master's affairs. Today, when I was serving in the hall, I heard that the person beside Prince Yu came to find trouble with young Master Lin. Young Master Lin said that young Master Lin is his person. Maybe it won't be long before there will be a happy occasion in the mansion. The words of the servants' discussion reached Shang Junlin's ears, and also reached Imperial Physician Wu's ears. After Imperial Physician Wu knew, his admiration for Shan Yu deepened. In this world, there was only one person who dared to imprison His Majesty and come out unscathed. Shang Junlin's people couldn't go out of the mansion, but he didn't stop what he ordered. Prince Yu still encountered trouble from time to time. These troubles were not a big deal, but when they spread to a certain extent, it was enough to destroy Prince Yu's many years of operation. Xinyu was still busy and spent more time away from the mansion. Shang Junlin felt distressed and felt that it couldn't go on like this. Yu was already sick, but he still had to drag his sick body to work for Prince Yu. No matter how he thought about it, he felt that Prince Yu wasn't worth it. Imperial Physician Wu would take Shan Yu's pulse every day. After taking the medicine prescribed by Imperial Physician Wu, Xinyu could feel that his body was getting better. So, he hired Imperial Physician Wu to stay and nurse his body with a large sum of money. Xinyu raised the flowers brought back from the auction house in his room. Under the careful care of Xinyu, they grew well and became one of Shan Yu's favorite flowers. In the carriage, Xinyu was telling Jiang Huiqing what to do next. Suddenly, he felt dizzy, followed by severe pain, as if a blunt knife was cutting his nerves. Xinyu clenched his teeth to stop himself from groaning. Jiang Huiqing immediately found that something was wrong. He stopped talking and supported the young man who almost fell. "Young master, Are you okay? Shun Yu put one hand on Jiang Huiqing's arm. Blue veins stood out on the back of his hand. Just as he was about to speak, he felt a bloody taste in his throat. Young master, in Jiang Huiqing's anxious voice, Shun Yu's vision turned black and he fainted. Jiang Huiqing knew that his young master's health was not good. It was common for him to have an attack. He supported the young man and took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood from the young man's lips. Then, he ordered the coachman to return to the mansion immediately. Shang Junlin was waiting for Shun Yu to come back. Since he was imprisoned in the mansion, he had less and less time to see Shun Yu. The young man left early and returned late. If he didn't see him when he came back, he might not see him for several days. The carriage did not stop outside the gate. Instead, it went all the way to the mansion. Shang Junlin realized that something was wrong. So, he walked over and asked, "What happened?" Young master fainted. Jiang Huiqing knew that Shun Yu was special to him. So, he did not hide it. How did he faint? Shang Junlin did not care about anything else. He got on the carriage and carried the young man out. "Go and call Dr. Wu." Jiang Huiqing stood aside and watched the man carry Shun Yu into the house. Then, he called the doctor. It was as if he was the master of the mansion. He could not intervene at all. At this time, Dr. Wu was still awake. When he heard the maidservant that Shun Yu had fainted, he hurried over. Shun Yu had already been placed on the bed by Shang Junlin, and his blood-stained clothes had been taken off and placed to the side. Even though he was unconscious, the young man still frowned, and beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead, indicating that his master was in great pain. Dr. Wu didn't say anything. He stepped forward and checked Shun Yu's pulse. As time passed, Dr. Wu also frowned. Who did young Master Shun meet today? What kind of food did he eat? What's different about you? Tell me everything in detail. Jiang Huiqing has been following Shun Yu. So, he carefully recalled everything that happened today. Everything else was the same as usual. But today, in Prince Yu's mansion, young Master Shun asked if he had changed the incense. Is young Master Shun's illness caused by this incense? It is reasonable to say that young Master Shun has been recuperating with my prescription. So, he shouldn't be like this. Just now, when I checked his pulse, I found something that triggered his illness. Dr. Wu explained, "I will check it out." Jiang Huiqing's face became very ugly. He calmed down and said to Dr. Wu, "Young Master Shun, please." "I will do my best." Imperial Dr. Wu came here to treat Shun Yu, so naturally, he wouldn't be careless. He thought for a moment and continued, "If possible, I hope this young master can bring that incense for me to take a look, so that I can know whether young Master Shun's illness has anything to do with it." "I know." Jiang Huiqing did not stay for long and left. As he said, he needed to check whether the illness was an accident or deliberately caused by someone. He also needed to find out the origin of the incense. Compared to Prince Yu, he certainly cared more about Shun Yu. Dr. Wu went to write a prescription. Shang Junlin sat by the bed and held Shun Yu's hand that was outside the quilt. He felt distressed. Shun Yu had fallen ill twice in such a short time. The flesh that he had painstakingly gained was gone. His wrist was so thin that it could be easily wrapped around. After writing a prescription, Shang Junlin sent someone to buy the medicine. After the medicine was bought, Dr. Wu personally decocted it and brought it in. "We have to find a way to make young Master Shun drink it." Shang Junlin had been holding Shun Yu's hand. Once he let go, the young man would unconsciously clench his fist. His fingernails would sink into his flesh, leaving bloody marks. "Leave the medicine. I will feed it to him. You can leave first." Shang Junlin looked at Shun Yu without turning back.
Yes.
Dr. Wu put down the bowl of medicine and left. Shang Junlin wrapped Shun Yu with the quilt and supported him to sit on his body. He picked up the medicine, scooped a spoonful, and blew on it until it was not hot. Then, he fed it to Shun Yu's mouth. "It won't hurt anymore after you drink the medicine." Shun Yu was unconscious, so naturally, he could not hear what Shang Junlin said. Shang Junlin pursed his lips and clenched his teeth. He tried several times, but he could not feed him. Shang Junlin put down the bowl of medicine and pinched Shun Yu's face. "Why don't you take care of your body? You are already in this state, yet you still work for the king of you. Is he that good?" Xin Yu opened his eyes in a daze. The touch on his face had not disappeared. He looked around and was a little confused. Brother Lin? I am. Shang Junlin did not expect that Shun Yu would wake up at such a coincidental time. He brought the bowl of medicine. You fainted in the carriage. Drink the medicine first. Brother Lin, what were you saying just now? Xin Yu vaguely remembered hearing a man's voice when he just woke up. Genius 1 second. Remember this website. www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website. mbq50. CC. Chapter 267. Why do you suddenly mention this? Xin Yu squinted his eyes and looked at Shang Junlin. Dr. Wu said that a Yu's body is not suitable to work so hard. If he wants to get better, he needs to rest for a while. Shang Junlin raised his hand and brushed Xin Yu's long hair behind his ear. Because he just woke up, the young man's long black hair was draped behind his back. His face was pale as if it will break at any time. Xin Yu looked at the young man without blinking his eyes and smiled. Just because of this? Shang Junlin's facial expression remained unchanged. You? Do you know why you got sick this time? My body has always been weak. Every year, I get sick a few times. Is it because of someone? Shang Junlin didn't answer, but his facial expression showed everything. Xin Yu sat up straight. His mind was getting clearer and clearer. His facial expression gradually became dignified. As he said, his body has always been weak. So, he never suspected that his illness was deliberately caused by someone. If that was the case, then his weak body will become a weapon for someone to control him. I want to see Dr. Wu. Shang Junlin had no objection. The sooner Xin Yu knew about this matter, the better. He was still thinking about how to persuade Xin Yu to go with him to the Ji family. But now, he had a good reason. Not long after, Imperial Dr. Wu was brought in by a servant. He reported his findings to Xin Yu. Xin Yu listened without saying a word. His facial expression did not change because of this sudden news. However, Shang Junlin could feel the anger in his body. It was better if Xin Yu did not know about this matter. But once he knew about it, he will definitely catch the person who tried to control him. As long as he was suspicious, some clues that were usually ignored will be found again. Xin Yu was a very active person. So, he will not just sit and wait for death. His Yinghua has developed to a very large scale. Moreover, Shang Junlin asked the hidden dragon guards to give him the information they found. So, some secrets that were deliberately hidden can no longer be hidden. Xin Yu found a person called Zhu Wang. He found out what he said to Prince Yu. He also found out why Prince Yu deliberately approached him. Zhang Huiqing also found out the origin of the incense. The incense in the manor was sent by one of His Highness's aides. This aide is very mysterious. No one knows where he came from. His Highness is also very secretive about his existence. If it weren't for this incident, I'm afraid we wouldn't have discovered that there was such a person behind His Highness. Zhang Huiqing reported the information he had found. Xin Yu rubbed the wall of the cup. His eyes were obscure. Does Wang Ye know the use of the incense? Xin Yu remembered that he had smelled the incense more than once in the Wangfu. Without exception, he would fall ill. But when he recovered, he would subconsciously ignore this matter and think that he was just sick. How could he ignore such a big matter? Besides this matter, was there anything else that was done to his body? Did Prince Yu do it on purpose or not? Questions filled his mind one after another. Some kind of barrier began to loosen. Xin Yu did not realize this. He was thinking that it was not important whether Prince Yu knew about it or not. No matter whether he knew about it or not, what happened to him could not be faked. Xin Yu also thought of the man who suddenly appeared beside him. All the changes started from this person's appearance. Did he know something? For what purpose did he do all this? I want to know what happened in the Wangfu when I first came to Yuezhou. Also, Brother Lin, go and investigate his background. Xin Yu's suspicions had increased to 10. At this time, he no longer thought that Brother Lin was just an ordinary businessman. The time he came to Yuezhou was the time when Prince Yu's power was damaged. If he did not think deeply, he would not have realized it. But after thinking deeply, there were flaws everywhere. Wang Ye should not know about it. From the information that I have gathered these days, at least Wang Ye did not know that the incense would cause you to fall ill. Young master, What should we do next? With Hua, Shenyu was very clear about the turmoil in the outside world. It was obvious that the imperial court was determined to do something to Prince Yu. If it was in the past, Shen Yu would have solved this matter for Prince Yu without hesitation. But now he hesitated. Let's put aside the outside world first. Before I give the order, tell them not to confront the imperial court. Prince Yu should have some unknown power behind him. This is the right time. It's time to let them come out and meet us. Shen Yu always knew that other than them, there was someone else behind Prince Yu. But this power was hidden too well. Even Prince Yu did not know their real background. Shen Yu had never dealt with them before. He did not know the specific scale of this power. Tell others that I am sick and will not see any guests during this time. Since he found out that something was wrong, Shen Yu must get to the bottom of this matter. Shang Junlin still could not leave the mansion. Before, Shen Yu was worried that Prince Yu would do something to him. But now Shen Yu was not so worried about Prince Yu. But he had doubts about him. He could not tell what he was feeling. After Jiang Huiqing left, Shen Yu sat alone in the study for a long time. He had felt that Brother Lin was special to him. He even had the idea of keeping Brother Lin forever. If Brother Lin was just an ordinary businessman, he would not be involved in these disputes. And he would not be like Prince Yu, who approached him with a purpose. When they were together, Shen Yu did not show any abnormality. They were still close. Even under Shen Yu's intention, they looked closer than before. In the evening, Shen Yu washed up and came out with water vapor. Shang Junlin was sitting in his room reading a book. Shen Yu asked the maid to invite him. Shen Yu looked at Brother Lin's side profile. No matter what purpose he had for approaching him, since he had bumped into him, he could not blame him for not letting him go. A person who had touched his heartstrings, even if he had bad intentions, he could only deal with him personally. You? Why did you call me over so late at night? Is there something important? Hearing the noise, Shang Junlin put down his book and looked over. The young man had just taken a bath. His face was still red from the steam. Under the candlelight, his black hair and snow-white skin looked even more gentle and charming. Brother Lin, didn't you say that you would take care of me? How about taking care of me personally? Shen Yu raised his eyebrows slightly. No matter how good a person was at disguising, it was impossible to disguise perfectly all the time. It would be easier to find flaws if he kept Brother Lin by his side. Shen Yu admitted that he had done it on purpose. He thought viciously. Was Brother Lin really close to him, or was he pretending? If it was the latter, then he would let the illusion be true forever. Shang Junlin never thought that Shen Yu would say such a thing. He knew that with Shen Yu's ability, when he started to suspect Prince Yu, he would definitely not be able to escape. And once the seed of suspicion was planted, he would definitely be discovered. After all, he wasn't a real businessman. His fake identity couldn't stand up to repeated scrutiny. What's wrong? Brother Lin, are you unwilling? No, I'm extremely happy to take care of you personally. Shen Yu nodded, seemingly satisfied with his answer. He walked to the bedside and sat down. Shang Junlin consciously took out a dry handkerchief to dry his hair. Dry your hair before sleeping. Otherwise, you will have a headache. The man's movements were skillful and his strength was just right. Shen Yu slightly closed his eyes. He couldn't help but wonder why the other party's movements were so skillful. Before meeting him, who had he taken care of in the same way? He thought that he would not care about this, but the truth was not so. After drying his hair, Shen Yu sat at the table and ordered the maid to bring the chess. Play a game with me? Shang Junlin put the handkerchief aside and sat opposite Shen Yu. The maid quickly brought the chessboard. Shen Yu played the black pieces. This time, he did not hold back. Shang Junlin was familiar with Shen Yu's chess style. He also knew that the other party's strength could not be underestimated. Under the other party's pressure, he had to show his true strength. Shen Yu did it deliberately. He wanted to use this game to force the man's true strength. Only when the other party showed his true strength could he infer the other party's true character. For people like him, there were too many things that could be seen through a game of chess. The two played back and forth, reversing the game again and again. The white pieces were surrounded by the black pieces. In the adversity, the white pieces fought back and the black pieces retreated. It seemed that they were at a disadvantage, but they could always make a comeback at the last moment. 2 hours passed, but there was no clear winner. Xinyu had not played chess so freely for a long time. In the end, he almost forgot his original intention and was immersed in the game. His mind was full of the chess game. When it ended, it was already late at night. Xinyu was not sleepy at all. He was also sure that the person playing chess with him could not be an ordinary businessman. That decisive style of chess was not something that an ordinary person could have. He just did not know what the other party's identity was in the imperial court. It's late at night. Brother Lin, you can sleep here. You said that you would take care of me, so naturally, you can't be too far away from me. Xinyu ordered someone to bring a soft bed over. Although he found out that the man might be someone sent by the imperial court, Xinyu was in a good mood. Imperial physician Wu had always thought that there would be nothing that could shock him again until he saw with his own eyes that the most powerful emperor in Dahuan personally took care of Xinyu's food and daily life like a manservant. He almost suspected that His Majesty had been poisoned by a venomous insect. He found an opportunity to take His Majesty's pulse before he breathed a sigh of relief. However, before he could relax completely, he became anxious again. His Majesty was not affected by external forces, which meant that His Majesty was sincere. As the ruler of a country, would nothing happen in the future? No one knew about Imperial Physician Wu's worries. Xinyu had been living well during this time. Even if the news from the King of Yu was not good, it did not affect his good mood. Every day, he went in and out with Shang Junlin. He could feel that the other party's closeness to him was sincere. Since this was confirmed, some things should be made clear. Thunder rumbled, and it started to rain heavily outside. Shang Junlin put away his umbrella and walked into the house. He had not shown himself for a long time. He had just thought of a way to go out and meet the people he brought with him. The deployment of the King of Yu was almost done. It was time to close the net. As soon as he entered the house, Shang Junlin felt that something was wrong. His heart sank. He walked into the inner room and saw a young man in blue sitting by the window. He was playing with an unopened secret letter in his hand. Hearing the footsteps, Xinyu looked up. "You went to meet the people from the imperial court?" Sure enough, he couldn't hide it for long. Shang Junlin sighed in his heart. "You found out. Then, how does you plan to deal with me?" Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, mbq50. CC. Chapter 268. Xinyu felt an aura from this man that a businessman would never have. He raised his head and looked into the man's eyes. His eyes were filled with vigilance. "What if I say that I will?" You don't have to look at me like that. Even if you want to hand me over, I won't do anything to you." Shang Junlin raised his hand and touched the young man's cheek. He naturally couldn't bear to hurt Xinyu, but he had no scruples when it came to King Yu. Xinyu stared at the man for a while and suddenly smiled. "If I wanted to hand you over, why would I keep you trapped in the mansion? As long as Xinyu didn't care, with King Yu's personality, he wouldn't let him go easily no matter what the man's real identity was. Yuezhou was King Yu's territory. It was easy for him to make everyone in this place disappear. I knew that you wouldn't do that. You kept me in the mansion to protect me, right?" Shang Junlin's movements were gentle. His hot breath sprinkled on the young man's face and successfully dyed his fair skin red. When he knew that Xinyu was protecting him, Shang Junlin's feelings were indescribable. Therefore, he sped up his plan to deal with King Yu and revealed a flaw to let Xinyu find out that something was wrong. If he wanted to pull Xinyu to his side, he couldn't always maintain his identity as a businessman. Xinyu's eyes flashed when his thoughts were exposed. Soon, he thought of something and asked, "Did you let me find out on purpose?" He came here today because the man's servant told him that the man was looking for him. When he arrived, he didn't see the man. He only saw a secret letter on the table. Xinyu didn't open the letter. It wasn't that he didn't expect this. Before the man came back, he had been thinking about how to deal with this matter. In his heart, he didn't want a third person to know about this. He also never thought of telling King Yu about it. Before she could come up with an appropriate solution, the man came back. When she saw him, Xinyu was displeased that she had been deceived. She questioned him without thinking. Feeling the constant warmth from the man's body, Xinyu suddenly realized that the two of them were too close to each other. He didn't like this position where he was at a disadvantage, so he skillfully pressed the man against the wall. You felt that you couldn't hide it any longer, so you deliberately let me find out? Xunyu's tone gradually turned cold. Brother Lin, no. Since you used a fake identity to approach me, this name must also be fake. What, is it fun to play with me? Xunyu's arm was pressed against the man's chest. Her eyes were burning. When she thought that their interactions these days were all intentional, Xunyu's heart was extremely irritated. Except for this identity, I have never played tricks on you, you. Shang Junlin held Xunyu's hand and placed it on his chest. This heart has never deceived you. Ba-dump. The heartbeat under his palm was steady and powerful. Xinyu knew that what the man said was true. Otherwise, what awaited the man today would not be such a simple confrontation. His treatment would not be good enough to eat, drink, and live in the mansion. You didn't approach me to deal with Prince Yu? Xinyu lowered her eyes and asked, why would you think that Prince Yu is worth it? I approached you only because of you. There is no other reason. This was very important. Shang Junlin didn't want Xinyu to misunderstand. Is the Imperial Court planning to take action against Prince Yu now? Yes, and the Imperial Court is determined to win this time. Shang Junlin spoke bluntly. Why would the Imperial Court suddenly want to take action against Prince Yu? In fact, Xinyu could more or less guess that the Imperial Court was aware of Prince Yu's movements. The current emperor didn't have any brotherly affection for his brothers. Since Prince Yu threatened him, he certainly wouldn't sit still and wait for death. Shang Junlin, because his hands are stretched too far. Xinyu, did you know my identity long ago? Shang Junlin, I did know your identity, but this has nothing to do with me approaching you. I wanted to approach you only because you were Xinyu. Xinyu, didn't you want to deal with Prince Yu through me? Shang Junlin shook his head. He pointed at the secret letter that Xinyu casually placed on the table. You doesn't want to see the contents inside? Xinyu raised his eyebrows. You want to surrender to me? Since he wanted to show it to him, Xinyu naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He let go of the man, walked to the table, and opened the secret letter. The more he read, the lower the pressure around Shan Yu's body became. This secret letter was full of things that Prince Yu had done. Everything he did stepped on Shan Yu's bottom line. Some of them even passed through Shan Yu's hands. But at that time, Shan Yu seemed to have no bottom line. As long as Prince Yu ordered him to do it, he would do it, even if it was against his original intention. Shang Junlin walked behind Xinyu and pressed his hands on the table, trapping him between himself and the table. Does you really think that such a person who would do anything to achieve his goals is suitable to sit on the throne? Shan Yu's fingers unconsciously tightened. Of course, he knew that a person who didn't care about the lives of the people was not suitable to be the emperor. Prince Yu sacrificed countless people for a little benefit today. Who could guarantee that when he sat on the throne, what would he do? The former emperor of Dahuan was like this. If the current emperor didn't turn the tide, who knows what would happen to Dahuan now? I admit that Prince Yu is not suitable for that position. Xinyu turned around and looked at the man with a faint smile. So, is this your real purpose? Prince Yu is destined to lose. Why should Yu sacrifice himself for such a person? Moreover, does Yu really not mind at all what Prince Yu did? For example, in order to ensure your obedience, he gave you a hint. What do you mean by this sentence? Yu should have noticed that something is wrong. Shang Junlin picked up a strand of hair that fell on the young man's chest and played with it in his hand. Yu, think carefully. Where did your loyalty to Prince Yu come from? As the legitimate son of Jin Beiho, why did you give up everything in the capital and come all the way to Prince Yu's fief to serve him? Xinyu thought for a while and realized that he really couldn't find the reason. His face became uglier and uglier. One of the things that Shun Yu hated the most in his life was being controlled by others. He thought that everything he did was out of his own free will. In the end, he realized that this was just his imagination. It was just like how he gradually realized that there was something wrong with his understanding of Prince Yu's feelings after he met Brother Lin. Xinyu thought of the incense in Prince Yu's residence that induced his illness. He didn't believe that Prince Yu was not involved from the beginning to the end. At this time, Shin Yu couldn't care less about the man's background and purpose. He had to figure out what happened to him first. Shang Junlin left hurriedly. He stood there and watched the young man's back as he left. When he couldn't be seen, he knocked on the table. A hidden dragon guard silently appeared in the room. Send the captured people to a Yu's Min. Remember, don't leave any traces of your involvement.
Yes.
After Xinyu went back, the first thing he did was to summon a few people in charge of Yinghua and ask them to investigate. As for Prince Yu, he didn't reveal any flaws for the time being. If they found out that it was really done by someone, he would definitely make the person who was involved pay the price. Yinghua acted quickly. With the help of the hidden dragon guards who secretly passed on clues, they received news not long after. There were some things that, unless they weren't done, would definitely leave traces once they were done. Xinyu knew that Jin Yan had appeared in Prince Yu's fief. Yinghua also captured a few people. These people revealed a shocking secret. It turned out that his serious illness when he first came to Yuezhou was not an accident. It was caused by someone who gave him a hint. The room was silent. No one expected that they would find out such a secret. Xinyu sat in the main seat. The expression on his face was unclear, and the silence spread. The subordinates sitting below all knew that this time, their master was really angry. Didn't you find out the people from the imperial court? Send them a message. Tell them that I want to meet their person in charge. I believe that they will be very interested in Prince Yu's power. Shun Yu's tone was very calm. Only he knew how angry he was. Part of it was towards Prince Yu. The rest was towards himself. He always thought that he was smarter than others. He didn't expect that he had been plotted against for so long and still didn't realize it. He, fixed, will, good, return, report, you. After that day, Xin Yu removed the restriction on the man. He knew that the man had the ability to protect himself. Xin Yu felt that he didn't need to do anything else. Although the man also lied to him, Xin Yu still wouldn't know that someone had done something to him if it wasn't for him. Counting the days, Xin Yu hadn't seen him for several days. No matter what happened before, Xin Yu felt that he should thank him for this matter. When he went to find him, the servant said that young Master Lin had left for several days. Xin Yu stood at the door for a while and turned to leave. The imperial court replied quickly. Xin Yu got on the carriage and went to the appointed place to meet the man. Under the pressure of the imperial court, Prince Yu's power was constantly shrinking. Except for the part that Shun Yu was in charge of, the other forces were greatly affected. Prince Yu wanted to meet Shun Yu several times, but he found excuses to avoid it. Prince Yu didn't dare to make Xin Yu unhappy at this juncture, so he could only follow his wishes. The appointed place to meet the man from the imperial court was a restaurant. Xin Yu got off the carriage and found that he had been here with Brother Lin. Thinking that he didn't know where Brother Lin went, Xin Yu frowned. Zhang Huiqing followed him into the restaurant. The guard waiting at the door led them to a private room on the second floor. Our lord only wants to see young Master Shan. Shun Yu nodded to Zhang Huiqing indiscernibly. Zhang Huiqing and the guard left together. Looking at the place where he had been before, Xin Yu felt a surge of complex emotions. Pushing the door open, Xin Yu saw a man in black standing by the window with his back to them. Hearing the sound, the man turned around. Young Master Shun, please come in. The man was wearing a black mask, covering the upper half of his face, revealing a sharp jaw and thin lips. Xin Yu stared at the man's face for a while, feeling that he was a little familiar. After sitting down, the servant waiting at the side poured tea for them. Xin Yu held the teacup and glanced at the man from time to time. This man gave him a very familiar feeling. Young Master Shun, why do you keep looking at me? The man asked in a low voice. I just feel that you are a little familiar. Shun Yu's only request when meeting with the imperial court's people was to meet the person who had the most authority. Why are you wearing a mask? To reduce some trouble. Young Master Shun, are you curious? The man put down the teacup and looked at the young man. Today Xin Yu was wearing an indigo robe, which made his skin look fairer. His temperament was very different from the light clothes he usually wore. His whole person looked sharper. I'm not curious. It's just that I sincerely invite you, but you don't seem to be sincere enough. The man was right. Shen Yu was curious. He was curious about why he suddenly had a good impression of the man when he saw him. He was also curious about why he felt that the man was familiar. If it was in the past, he would not be so curious. As long as he achieved his goal, it had nothing to do with him. Shen Yu himself did not know why he cared so much. Shen Yu seemed to see the man smile, and then he saw the man slowly relax. The man's face was a little similar to King Yu's. But compared to King Yu, the man was more handsome, and the aura around him was stronger. With such an appearance, and on behalf of the imperial court, needless to say, Shen Yu could guess the man's identity. The king of Great Huan, Shang Junlin. Why did he appear here? Now, is our sincerity enough? Shang Junlin chuckled and put the mask back on. Genius 1 second. Remember this website. www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website. MBQ50. CC. The king of Yu is ambitious, but he doesn't have the ability to match it. If he really succeeds, it will be a disaster for the people of Dahuan. What about young Master Shen? Shang Junlin put down his wine glass. What does young Master Shen think? I am willing to contribute to the imperial court. In order to show his sincerity, Shen Yu brought a lot of information about the king of Yu. In these years, he worked for the king of Yu, so he knew more about the king of Yu's power than the imperial court. Then, Shen Yu talked about what he had prepared long ago, about the king of Yu's power, and what he was going to do next. The former was something he had originally planned to tell the imperial court, while the latter was something he had accidentally said when he was having too much fun with Shang Junlin. Shen Yu could already feel that his good impression of Shang Junlin was too high. Nearly 2 hours had passed since the two finished talking. Shen Yu looked at the sky and said goodbye. Shang Junlin didn't stop him. He sent him to the door and said, "Young Master Shen, if you have anything to do, you can go here. They will follow your orders." Shen Yu didn't refuse. Shang Junlin watched the young man leave until he couldn't be seen. When he returned to the house, there were 2 more people in the house. "Next, you have to cooperate with young Master Shen." Shang Junlin sat where the young man sat just now and said, "Yes." These 2 people were the officials of the imperial court who were supposed to negotiate with Shen Yu. Unexpectedly, Shang Junlin went to see them directly after learning about this matter. No matter how confused they were, they couldn't change His Majesty's mind. When His Majesty talked with young Master Shen, they were next door. They came out after His Majesty left. After Shen Yu went back, he asked his people to come here. Since he had reached an agreement with the imperial court, it was time for him to take action. With his help, the collapse of the King of Yu's power accelerated rapidly. The King of Yu finally panicked. If the previous chaos only affected the external forces, this time it really affected the core of the King of Yu's power. King of Yu had to ask for help from the person who had been helping him behind the scenes. He didn't know that the person was too busy to take care of himself. King An's side was solved unexpectedly smoothly. After all, in the other world, Shang Junlin had figured out all of King An's arrangements. This time, the sudden attack was even more unexpected. King An didn't know how he was exposed until he was defeated. King An was already under control. As for how to deal with him, he only needed to wait for Shang Junlin's order. With Shen Yu's help, the King of Yu's side was also very smooth. After the cooperation, Shen Yu realized how well prepared the imperial court was this time. No matter how hard the King of Yu struggled, he would only be a grasshopper after autumn. Shen Yu, who was busy, didn't have time to think about too many miscellaneous things. When the matter was over, he realized that he hadn't seen Brother Lin for a while. On the contrary, because of the cooperation, he met Shang Junlin more and more often. There was another strange thing. He didn't see Brother Lin among the people sent by the imperial court. Logically speaking, this shouldn't be, unless Brother Lin was deliberately avoiding him. What was there to hide? Shen Yu sneered in his heart. Could it be that Brother Lin felt that it wasn't good to appear in front of him again after his identity was exposed? Shen Yu was used to being alone. This time, he just returned to the state of being alone again. He shouldn't care about it. However, every time he was free, Shen Yu's figure would appear in his mind unconsciously. He also missed the feeling when they were together. Young Master Shen, what are you thinking about? Shang Junlin narrowed his eyes when he saw that the young man was distracted. This wasn't the first time. As long as the two of them were together, Shang Junlin's attention would always be on him. Shen Yu might not have realized it himself, but Shang Junlin had already noticed it. Who was the young man thinking about? Why was he showing this expression time and time again? Was it the king of you? Every time he thought of this possibility, Shang Junlin's ruthlessness would increase. He had already found out what those people did to Shen Yu. He also asked the hidden dragon guards to speed up the search for the Ji family. He didn't know how much Shen Yu was affected. Even if it was only a small effect, he didn't want to let those people off easily. Shen Yu didn't know what the man opposite him was thinking. He stopped thinking and said, I'm not thinking about anything. We caught a few people recently. Would young Master Shen be interested in meeting them? Shang Junlin also restrained his emotions and said, Who is it? Shen Yu was curious. For Shang Junlin to mention it, the person who was captured must be extraordinary. They are the people who have been secretly controlling King Yu's actions. Young Master Shen should have heard of a saying that spread in Yuezhou a few years ago. This person is related to this matter. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin went to the dungeon together. The dungeon was modified from a dark room. It couldn't see the sun, and the only light came from the torches on the wall. Hearing the footsteps, the person locked in the dungeon raised his head. When he saw who it was, he subconsciously stepped back to hide. He seems to be afraid of you. Shen Yu noticed and said. Shang Junlin curled his lips and said, If you have any questions, you can ask him directly. Shen Yu walked over and squatted down. I'm very curious. What kind of hatred do you have against me that you have been plotting for so many years? The man had been tortured once and was already honest. He answered, You and I really don't have any hatred. You are that person's child. She ruined everything we planned and caused us to lose our home. Now she is dead. You are her only child. If I don't take revenge on you, who else should I take revenge on? You are also the one who controlled me to work for King Yu? Shen Yu's eyes darkened. He didn't expect that this matter would involve his mother who had passed away many years ago. I don't have such great ability. The thing that controlled you was planted in you by your mother. We were just making use of it. The man's tone was full of malice. Shang Junlin walked over and said coldly, You still don't want to be honest? Hearing his voice, the man shrank back and didn't dare to have any evil thoughts. He said honestly, The thing in your body is the Ji family's sacred object, the ring. It was indeed passed on to you by your mother. Your mother was the Ji family's holy maiden. She wasn't supposed to get married and have children. There has never been a precedent of a holy maiden giving birth. It wasn't until we confirmed that you had the ring in your body that we knew that it could be passed on from mother to child regardless of gender. Then, Shen Yu heard a story from the man about more than 10 years ago. It was about the Ji family, about his mother, and about the ring in his body. Shen Yu had never found out about these things. When he came out of the dungeon, his expression was still a little absent-minded. The sky was already dark and a crescent moon hung high in the sky. Shen Yu was digesting the news he had just heard. He didn't pay attention to his feet and tripped. Be careful. A strong arm supported him. Shen Yu stood up and turned to look at the man walking beside him silently. Thank you. Are you thinking about what happened just now? Shang Junlin asked. Shen Yu nodded. I've always been curious about my mother's identity. After investigating for so long, I still couldn't find any clues. It turned out that she was from the Ji family. Even the name I knew was fake. Shen Yu couldn't tell what he was feeling. He sighed. What are your plans after Prince Yu's matter is over? Shang Junlin deliberately revealed this matter to Shen Yu. In order to solve the hidden danger in Shen Yu's body, the Ji family had to take action. Instead of explaining things at the last minute, it was better to let Shen Yu discover the truth himself. Shen Yu did find out some news about the Ji family's involvement these days. When he heard those words, he didn't feel that it was too unbelievable. He just didn't expect that he was also involved with the Ji family. As for his future plans, Shen Yu's eyes flashed for a moment. Is young Master Shen willing to enter the court as an official? Without waiting for Shen Yu to think of a result, Shang Junlin continued, With young Master Shen's talent, You will definitely become a pillar of the great Huan dynasty. Shenyu didn't expect to hear these words from the emperor of the great Huan dynasty. The blankness in his eyes was replaced by shock. Under the moonlight, he stared at the handsome young emperor. He couldn't tell what he was feeling. He didn't even notice that the other's arm was still supporting him. The shadows of the two people were intertwined. From a distance, it looked like the young man was being held in the arms of the tall man in black. "Your Majesty," the official who came to report something important stopped and stared in front of him, dumbfounded. So, the real reason why His Majesty personally came to Prince Yu's fief was because of young Master Shun? Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading URL, mbq50. CC. Chapter 270. Hearing the voice, Shenyu came back to his senses. He noticed that the distance between him and Shang Junlin was too close, so he quietly took a step back. Since there was someone coming over, he couldn't do anything. Shang Junlin let go of his hand, and a trace of regret flashed through his eyes. "If you have something else to do, I'll take my leave first." Shenyu bowed his head and turned to leave. Shang Junlin didn't stop him. He stared at the direction where the young man left. The official who interrupted the two stood aside. Feeling the displeasure from the man, he wanted to cry but had no tears. He really didn't mean to disturb them. If he knew that the emperor had such thoughts, he wouldn't dare to come over at this time no matter how bold he was. After a while, Shang Junlin closed his eyes and suppressed the complicated emotions in his heart. He said lightly, "What's the matter?" The official quickly explained the purpose of his visit. He came to report to Shang Junlin about the progress of King Yu's matter and the news from King An's fief. Now that King An was under control, Shang Junlin still had to give orders as to what to do. As for King Yu, he wouldn't have known if he didn't investigate. After a careful investigation, he found out that King Yu had secretly planned many things over the years. When these things were spread back, it would definitely shock the imperial court. Under the night sky, Shenyu walked out of the courtyard alone. The carriage was already waiting outside the residence. This was Shang Junlin's residence in Yuezhou. King Yu would never have thought that in the bustling area of Yuezhou, the person he regarded as his lifelong enemy had been living here for a long time. After getting into the carriage, Zhang Huiqing poured a cup of tea for him. Shenyu took a sip and asked, "Why are you here?" "After finishing my work, I saw that you hadn't returned, so I came to see you." Zhang Huiqing said, "Have you heard of the Ji family?" Since he had clues about his mother, Shenyu had to investigate further. "I've only read a little about them in books. According to the records, the Ji family has been good at medicine for generations. They have been in seclusion for many years. It won't be easy for you to find traces of the Ji family. It's fine. Get someone to investigate. The person behind King Yu might be related to the Ji family." Shenyu didn't say anything definite. When he heard the news today, his first reaction was to send his own people to investigate. With the example of the Prince of Yu, it was difficult for him to completely let down his guard, even though he had a better impression of Shang Junlin than expected. After instructing his subordinates, Shenyu returned to his room to rest. His movements these days were not small. The King of Yu might have noticed it. There was a pot of flowers by the window. Shenyu walked over, picked up a small kettle, and watered it. This flower was given to him by Brother Lin. Now, it was here, but Brother Lin was not thinking about it. Shenyu was a little lost in thought. Yu Wangfu. Everyone in Prince Yu's mansion was busy. The matter that had been solved was in a deadlock again, especially those that were directly or indirectly handled by Shenyu. More or less, there were problems. The King of Yu was not a fool. At this point, it was impossible for him to not notice the problem. However, he refused to believe that Shenyu would betray him. After all, he had done something to Shenyu from the beginning. In the study, the King of Yu anxiously paced back and forth. A few of his confidants stood below, but no one spoke. These days, the King of Yu was in a bad mood because they said something they shouldn't have. Too many people were punished by him. Whether it was his aides or servants, they tried to speak less in front of him, so as not to lose their lives because of a word. A servant came in and whispered a few words to the king of you. The king of you waved his hand. That's all for today. You can leave now. We will talk about other things another day. Yes. The confidants bowed their heads and left. In the blink of an eye, only the king of you was left in the large study. He stood alone for a while. The door of the study was opened and a middle-aged man came in. Your Highness. The king of you turned around. After a few polite words, he asked directly, you said before that the person who used that thing would never betray me. Now, I ask you, is there really no accident? Normally, there won't be. But I feel that the person has already betrayed me. What do you want, Your Highness? This is your mistake. You should solve it. When we made the deal, you promised that this matter would be foolproof. I don't care what method you use. You must solve this matter properly. Yes, we will help Your Highness. Shun Yu was still busy. After knowing that he had been controlled by someone, he couldn't remain indifferent. Finding the person who controlled him became the most important thing. Without waiting for him to come up with a result, the imperial court sent someone again, saying that they had found some information about what happened when he first came to Yuezhou. After tidying himself up, Shen Yu once again appeared in the house where Shang Junlin was temporarily staying. The tall man sat by the table, playing with a wooden token in his hand. When he saw Shen Yu, Shang Junlin handed the token to him. Young Master Shen, have you seen this before? Shen Yu took the token from the man's palm and looked at it carefully. There were complicated patterns engraved on the token, and they looked familiar. Shen Yu rubbed the token with his fingers, searching for such patterns in his memory. Shang Junlin didn't say anything to disturb him. After some time, Shen Yu's eyes flashed. He remembered. When he first came to Yuezhou, when he was unconscious and sick, there was a person who followed the king of Yu who had a token like this on his waist. Shen Yu told him about his discovery. He asked, where did you get this token? Do you still remember the person who was locked up in the dungeon? We managed to get a lot of useful information from him. Following these clues, we managed to capture some people. These people were the ones who carried the tokens with them. We specially invited young Master Shen over because we learned something about you from these people, Shang Junlin said. Shen Yu sat down and put the token on the table. I'd like to hear more. Young Master Shen, when you first came to Yuezhou, you were seriously ill. It was done by these people. They made a deal with the king of Yu to help him control you. They wanted the king of Yu to help them destroy the Ji family after he succeeded. These people betrayed the Ji family, so it was not strange for them to have such a request. Shen Yu smiled, but there was not much of a smile in his eyes. The king of Yu is willing to work hard for me? Originally, we caught these people to get rid of the hidden danger in your body, but... Shang Junlin paused for a moment. The people who attacked you at that time had already passed away. The people who left behind don't know how to remove this seal on your body. Passed away? Yes, it is not so easy to control someone. The two people who attacked you at that time have both died. According to the confessions of those people, this kind of control was irreversible. Shang Junlin did not believe in these people's nonsense. Shen Yu was already out of control. When the hidden dragon guards found the traces of the Ji family, the seal on Shen Yu's body would no longer be a threat. Without Shang Junlin saying it, Shen Yu understood that the two people's deaths were the price they paid for trying to control him. You don't have to worry. I will find the Ji family and let them remove the seal for you. Shen Yu was not worried. He had lived with this illness for so long and was already used to it. After knowing that he did not do things for the king of Yu, he was confused about the future for a moment. But it was only for a moment. No matter what the future would be, he knew what he had to do now. Your Majesty, don't you think that you are too concerned about me? Shen Yu rested his chin on his hands and looked at the man sitting opposite him. It was really strange. Based on their experiences together, Shen Yu found it hard to associate the man in front of him with the rumored ruthless emperor. You work for the imperial court. Of course, I have to be concerned about you. Shang Junlin did not say anything and allowed the young man to look at him. Your Majesty, do you treat every official like this? Shen Yu continued to ask. Of course not. If this was said to any official in the imperial court, they would definitely laugh at the person who said it. What if I say that I only treat you well? Shang Junlin looked into the young man's eyes. The man's eyes were dark and deeper than the night sky. At this moment, Shen Yu saw himself in the other party's eyes. He opened his mouth but did not know what to say. What did he mean by only treat me well? Shen Yu did not want to think about the deeper meaning of this sentence. Silence spread, and the room fell into silence. He was the one who spoke first and tentatively lifted the layers of curtains in the dark night. But when he saw the truth, he was also the one who was speechless. Don't think too much, Shang Junlin suddenly said. There is one more thing. King Yu is already suspicious of you. He might do something in the next few days. Shen Yu pulled back his thoughts. I know. With such a big movement, even if King Yu is a pig, he should have realized that something is wrong. From the moment he decided to cooperate with the imperial court, Shen Yu expected that such a day would come. If he was afraid because of this, he would not be him. Shang Junlin did not feel the young man's fear, but it was not strange. The young man dared to go against him because of King Yu. Now that the enemy was King Yu, what was there to be afraid of? Using the excuse that King Yu was going to cause trouble and was worried about the young man's safety, Shang Junlin and Shen Yu got closer and closer. After interacting with him, Shen Yu felt more and more that De Huan, the young emperor who ascended the throne, was very different from the rumors. What he felt most was that De Huan seemed to be very skillful in taking care of him. Occasionally, when he met the officials sent by the imperial court, Shen Yu could feel the surprise from them, especially when Shang Junlin took care of him. After interacting with him more, Shang Junlin gave Shen Yu a stronger sense of familiarity. Shen Yu had doubts in his heart. He wanted to figure out where this sense of familiarity came from. Gongzi, do you want to put away the things in Gongzi Lin's room? The maid walked in and asked. Shen Yu put down his pen. Speaking of which, Brother Lin had left for a while. At first, Shen Yu would think of him. Later, when things got busy and he had frequent contact with Shang Junlin, he did not think of this person. After the maid reminded him, he suddenly realized that the sense of familiarity that Shang Junlin gave him was almost the same as that of Brother Lin. What was the connection between these two people? Don't touch the things in that room first, Shen Yu said. Shen Yu did not think that two different people could give him the same feeling. When he interacted with Shang Junlin with suspicion, he felt that there were many similarities between them. For example, their height was about the same. There were also some small details when they interacted. Some things were like this. When you did not realize it, you did not feel anything. When you had doubts, it would reveal that there was something wrong everywhere. Some habits were engraved in the bones. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin had interacted for a long time, so it was hard not to notice it. But it was also because of this that Shen Yu felt it was very inconceivable. If his guess was true, the dignified emperor of De Huan had disguised himself to get close to him, and he had almost been kept in a golden house by him. He had to endure his arrogance and order. When he took care of him, he had to take care of him no matter how small the matter was. No matter which one it was, an ordinary man might not be able to accept it. But not only did he accept it, he even accepted it well. What did he want? This was the thing that Shen Yu could not understand the most. It was also the important reason why he felt that his guess was a whimsical one. Why are you looking at me? Shang Junlin felt the gaze on him, so he asked with a smile. I feel that you are a bit similar to an old friend of mine. Shen Yu retracted his gaze, and there was a trace of nostalgia in his tone. Is that person very important to young Master Shen? Shang Junlin's hands, which were hanging in his sleeves, unconsciously clenched. Could it be that someone had approached Shen Yu when he was not aware? As if he did not feel the man's gloomy face in an instant, Shen Yu nodded. Yes, it's a pity that he left without saying goodbye. You don't have to take it to heart that he left without saying goodbye. I call him Brother Lin. He also works for the Imperial Court. Do you know where he is now? Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, mbq50. CC. Chapter 271. Shin Yu turned to look at the man and nodded. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid I wouldn't have realized that I was being controlled by Prince Yu so quickly. Shin Yu had been thinking about when he realized that something was wrong these days. The result was obvious. Everything happened after Brother Lin appeared. He didn't know if Brother Lin did something to make him realize that something was wrong. No matter what, he owed Brother Lin a favor. Of course, if Brother Lin lied to him, he wouldn't let it go easily. Shin Yu clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. He would never confuse kindness with resentment. He watched the man's expression, not letting go of any changes. Even if it was impossible, Shin Yu still felt that his guess was right. At this moment, Shang Junlin's mood was very complicated. Is this young Master Lin very special to young Master Shin? If you knew that he lied to you, what would you do? That depends on what he's hiding from me. If it's not important or necessary, I won't say anything. Shang Junlin began to think about what his behavior was. After saying so much, you still haven't told me where he is now. Noticing the change in the man's expression, Shun Yu continued, Shang Junlin didn't know how to answer. His intuition told him that he couldn't lie. He didn't think that Shun Yu would ask this question for no reason. The gap between him and Shun Yu meant that Shun Yu wouldn't ask unless he knew something and was testing him. After figuring this out, Shang Junlin looked at Shin Yu again. The young man didn't look anxious. If you looked carefully, you could even see a hint of ridicule in his eyes. Why didn't your majesty say anything? Shun Yu raised his eyebrows. You already know. Why are you still asking me? Shang Junlin was helpless. Does your majesty admit it? Shun Yu blinked. He just wanted to test him. He didn't expect the other party to admit it directly. Since you've already guessed it, wouldn't it be an additional crime for us to hide it from you? After speaking, Shang Junlin no longer suppressed himself. This time, there was no need for Shun Yu to verify. The man in front of him and Brother Lin's figure completely overlapped. Shun Yu felt a long-lost emotion from him. The two of them walked to a small pavilion and sat down. Shang Junlin sat opposite Shin Yu. He personally poured a cup of tea and handed it to a Yu. Zhen apologizes to a Yu for lying to you before. Shin Yu paused in his action of taking the tea. The two words Yu coming out of Brother Lin's mouth gave him a completely different feeling from Shang Junlin's. He had to admit that he treated Brother Lin differently from others. He had also thought about how the two of them would get along in the future. However, when this person was Shang Junlin, he had no choice but to consider his true identity. After this day, Shun Yu began to deliberately alienate Shang Junlin. He couldn't understand the messy relationship between the two of them, so he had to numb himself with other things. The process of Prince Yu's side had reached a critical juncture. Shun Yu's actions were no longer as smooth as before. Sometimes, he could feel that someone was secretly watching him. Shin Yu knew that these people were most likely sent by Prince Yu, indicating that Prince Yu had become suspicious of him. Young Master Shun, Prince Yu invites you. Shin Yu was about to return to the mansion, but he was stopped halfway. Did Prince Yu say what's the matter? Shin Yu stopped. Young Master Shun, you'll know when you get there. The person's tone was cold. Shin Yu glanced around with the corner of his eyes. He saw a few people dressed as common people staring at him. It seemed that Prince Yu couldn't sit still anymore. Shin Yu didn't make any unnecessary resistance. He nodded and followed the person into the carriage. These people didn't notice that the young man made a subtle gesture with his hand behind his back. The carriage rushed all the way, and soon they arrived at Prince Yu's mansion. After Shin Yu got off the carriage, two powerful bodyguards followed him, one on the left and one on the right. The person who brought him here retreated, and a maid took his place to lead the way for Shin Yu. They didn't speak a word along the way. Shin Yu was taken to the study. Shin Yu had walked this road countless times, but there was no time like today when he was watched by someone in the dark. Shin Yu was very familiar with Prince Yu's forces. He knew that the person hiding in the dark was a secret guard of Prince Yu. He pulled the corner of his mouth. It seemed that the threat he brought to Prince Yu was not small. Prince Yu even sent this secret guard. In the study, in addition to Prince Yu, there were several trusted aides of Prince Yu. They had worked together for many years, so Shin Yu was familiar with these people. Seeing him come in, the study was quiet for a moment. Shin Yu didn't seem to feel anything unusual. His every move was as usual, which made people who were suspicious of him hesitate. "I don't know why your highness called me here." His performance was too normal. Prince Yu looked at him deeply, as if he wanted to peel off his disguise. Before Shin Yu came in, his performance along the way had been reported by people who were secretly watching him. Because of this, Prince Yu, who was originally certain, was shaken. Prince Yu knew that Shun Yu was a very cautious person. If the other party really betrayed him, it was impossible for him to come to Prince Yu's mansion without any precautions. Because he was a smart person, he knew what it meant to come here. "Today, I called you here to ask about the progress of your subordinates. Previously, I didn't consider it thoroughly. You are not in good health, so I gave you all the work to do." Shun Yu's behavior made the king of Yu change his strategy. He only said that he was worried about Shun Yu's health and wanted others to share his worries. Shun Yu was not confused by his flowery words. No matter how nice his words were, it could not change the fact that the king of Yu wanted to take back the power in his hands. The spy had been planted. Shun Yu didn't care about it and directly handed over the power. His action reduced the suspicions of Prince Yu and the others. After the handover, it was already late at night. Prince Yu sent Shin Yu out and said, "The mansion has cleaned up the courtyard where you used to live. I found a famous doctor to take a look at your health. You can stay in the mansion for these 2 days." His tone was full of meaning that he couldn't refuse. Shin Yu looked at the sky. It turned out that Prince Yu was waiting for him here. He also wanted to know what Prince Yu was planning to do. So he didn't refuse. "Your Highness, you have troubled me." Prince Yu's face softened at a speed visible to the naked eye. He ordered the maid to take Shun Yu to rest. The maid took Shin Yu to a small courtyard. Shin Yu was not unfamiliar with this place. When he first came to Yuezhou, he lived here for a while. He only moved out when his health was better. The layout of the courtyard was almost the same as before. Shin Yu went back to his room. After washing up, he lay on the bed. After Shin Yu left, the confidants who had left came back to the study room again. Prince Yu sat on the main seat and said, "What do you think?" He asked what they thought of Shun Yu's behavior. Prince Yu called Shin Yu here because someone had evidence that Shun Yu was disloyal. However, the evidence was not sufficient. Originally, he should have interrogated Shun Yu today. Unexpectedly, Prince Yu changed his mind halfway. The person who reported Shin Yu was angry. At this time, "Why does your highness still care about old friendship?" "Because this prince doesn't want to disappoint everyone. Shin Yu has worked for this prince for so many years, and everyone recognizes his ability. Everyone also doesn't want this prince to be estranged from him because of some specious evidence, right?" "Your highness is right. I will leave the things that Shun Yu is in charge of to you. If it is proven that he is disloyal, I will punish him impartially. If not, I don't want the same thing to happen again." Why did Prince Yu let him go so easily? It was not that he believed that Shun Yu would not betray him. It was because he valued Shun Yu's ability. He did not want to lose such a useful subordinate. In addition, those people had promised him that they would give him an obedient and loyal Shen Yu. Before he succeeded, he would not care about this small mistake. Shen Yu also knew that Prince Yu would not do anything to him. That was why he dared to go to the appointment alone. He came here because he wanted to find out why he was seriously ill when he first came to Yuezhou. Prince Yu did not plan to fall out with Shun Yu. He still wanted to use him. Therefore, Shun Yu was treated the same as usual in Prince Yu's residence. After Shun Yu did not appear for a few days, Shang Junlin could not wait any longer. He went to Shun Yu's residence but was told that his master was not there. He sent the hidden dragon guards to investigate and found out that Shun Yu had gone to Prince Yu's residence. Moreover, it had been a few days since Shun Yu went to Prince Yu's residence. The backup plan that Shin Yu left behind had been in action. The people sent by Shang Junlin had already obtained the evidence of Prince Yu's crimes. Everything had been arranged. Only the last step was left. In addition, after that day, Shin Yu consciously distanced himself from Shang Junlin. As a result, he did not discover that Shun Yu was trapped in Prince Yu's residence. "Your Majesty?" The time of the plan had been set. They were only waiting for Shang Junlin to give the order. Then, they would be able to uproot Prince Yu's forces. However, at this time, Shang Junlin stopped them. Let them be prepared and wait for my news. At night, Shin Yu put down his book and planned to sleep. A slight noise came from the window. He paused, walked over, and opened the window. Don't move. Suddenly, a pair of hands appeared from behind and pulled Shin Yu away from the window. There was only a small gap in the window. The moonlight came in through the gap. Shin Yu saw the overlapping shadows on the wall. His hand unconsciously held the dagger in his sleeve. Who are you? What do you want to do? The distance between the two of them was shortened again. Shin Yu closed his eyes in discomfort and quickly calculated in his mind who had sent the person behind him. The man's voice was low and hoarse. Shin Yu was sure that he had never heard such a voice before. Of course, this could be a deliberate disguise to avoid being discovered. Young Master Shun, how did you get yourself into such a situation? The man was taller than Shin Yu. In order not to be discovered by the people patrolling outside, he had to bend down slightly and whisper in the young man's ear. When he spoke, his breath hit the sensitive ear. Shin Yu was caught off guard. A cold light flashed and his wrist was grabbed by the man. This time, they were in a face-to-face position. Shin Yu was lying in the man's arms. He smelled a familiar scent. His struggling movements suddenly stopped. The man was afraid of hurting him, so he didn't dare to use too much strength. He had a headache because of the young man struggling. Unexpectedly, the other party suddenly stopped. The noise made by the movement attracted the attention of the people outside. Shin Yu was about to say something when he heard the approaching footsteps. Young Master Shun, what happened? The voice of the guard came from outside the room. These people were arranged by King Yu. In the name of protecting Shin Yu, they were actually monitoring him. Shin Yu knew this. Hearing this, he frowned. Shin Yu's waist was tightened. He heard the man's low voice. Young Master Shun, are you going to hand me over? If Shin Yu was still doubtful before, now he was sure. The man's voice and tone were exactly the same as when Brother Lin said this sentence. How can the emperor of a country come to my room in the middle of the night to be a gentleman? After confirming who it was, Shin Yu laughed angrily. Do you have such a special hobby? Genius 1 second. Remember this site. www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading URL. mbq50. CC. Chapter 272. What did he mean by stole your treasure? Shin Yu pursed his lips, but reality didn't give him much time to think about it. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. If he didn't make a sound, the people outside might rush in. Shin Yu gave him a "I'll deal with you later" look and said, Nothing. I accidentally bumped into the table. The footsteps stopped. Shin Yu was still trapped in the man's arms. They stood by the window. If someone pushed the door open, they would be able to see their intimate posture at first glance. In the darkness, Shin Yu felt his heart beating faster. The people outside seemed to be thinking about something and didn't leave immediately. Shin Yu didn't know the situation outside. In order not to let Shang Junlin be discovered, he could only maintain the current posture. Neither of them spoke. In the silence, time passed quietly. After a long time, the sound of footsteps sounded outside. Shin Yu unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief and found that the two of them still maintained the original posture. They have left. Your Majesty should let me go, right? Shang Junlin didn't seem to have the slightest intention of letting him go. He lowered his head and whispered in the young man's ear, You didn't say anything just now. Was it to protect me? Shun Yu's eyes flashed. I just don't want the dignified emperor to be discovered to have such a hobby. Shang Junlin didn't expose Shun Yu's duplicity. Today, Shin Yu's behavior was enough to show that he had feelings for him. This knowledge made Shang Junlin's heart warm. The uneasiness caused by the young man's deliberate alienation slowly disappeared. Yes, Yu is thinking about my reputation. Shang Junlin reluctantly let go of the young man. There was one more person in the room. In order not to be discovered by the subordinates of King Yu, Shin Yu got up and extinguished the last candle. Your Majesty, why are you here? I heard that you were taken away by King Yu. I was worried, so I came to see. Shang Junlin didn't say anything. When he received the news, he almost impulsively ordered his men to take action. However, he was worried that he would hurt Shen Yu, so he suppressed the thought. I did it on purpose. King Yu had been suspicious of me for a long time. I also wanted to know what happened when I first came to Yuezhou, so I played along. Have you ever thought about what would happen if King Yu really wanted to kill you? Shang Junlin interrupted Shen Yu. I didn't come to the Yu Wangfu without any precautions. Shen Yu curled his lips. Is your majesty worried about me? Yes, Shang Junlin admitted directly. I don't want to see you get hurt. Shen Yu didn't expect Shang Junlin to be so direct. He was silent for a while. What does your majesty plan to do? Shen Yu wasn't stupid enough to think that Shang Junlin did all this just because he wanted to surrender. Whether it was when he pretended to be Brother Lin or now, Shen Yu could feel his sincerity. However, his thoughts were too chaotic and he didn't want to completely break the barrier that was no longer strong. I won't come here for nothing. I've prepared for so long. It's time to take action. Just you wait. After tonight, King Yu will no longer be a threat. After he finished speaking, Shen Yu vaguely heard the noise outside. What he didn't know was that a large number of imperial soldiers had rushed into the Yu Wangfu. It was chaotic. Only the small courtyard he was in was as quiet as before. Do you want to rest for a while? Shang Junlin stood by the window. When you wake up, it should be over. Shen Yu shook his head. He wanted to witness the failure of King Yu with his own eyes. The front courtyard of King Yu Wangfu was in a mess. King Yu couldn't figure out why the imperial army rushed into the Yu Wangfu when he was just sleeping. He couldn't figure out why he didn't receive any news when so many people entered his fief. After being escorted out of the warm bed, King Yu was restrained by the soldiers. He could only watch helplessly as an endless stream of people poured in. In front of the army brought by Shang Junlin, the power he was so proud of was so weak that it couldn't even withstand a single blow. I am King Yu who was appointed by the former emperor. What do you want to do? No one answered him. Shin Qingran, who lived in King Yu Wangfu, was also taken out. He was treated the same as King Yu's aides. He knelt on the ground and watched the people who were valued by King Yu being taken out. He couldn't help but wonder if Shen Yu would also be taken out in such a sorry state. As long as he thought of Shan Yu's sorry state, the fear in Shan Qingran's heart decreased a lot. He didn't know where these soldiers came from, but it didn't stop him from wanting to see Shen Yu's sorry state. He waited and waited. Everyone in the Yu Wangfu was taken out, but Shen Yu still didn't appear. Shin Qingran felt uneasy. He was sure that Shen Yu was locked up in the Yu Wangfu. Why was everyone controlled, but Shen Yu still didn't appear? King Yu also noticed this. He tried his best to raise his head and looked around to make sure that Shen Yu didn't appear in the crowd. These soldiers didn't even let go of the servants. It didn't make sense that Shen Yu was safe and sound. Thinking of what his subordinates said about Shen Yu being disloyal, King Yu's heart sank. In the only undisturbed small courtyard, Shen Yu and Shang Junlin walked out together. The moonlight was bright, casting a layer of silver light on the ground. The guards in the courtyard had unknowingly changed. They were the hidden dragon guards brought by Shang Junlin. They hid in the dark to protect the safety of the people in the courtyard. A soldier wearing armor walked in, knelt on one knee, and reported the progress outside. With the clues provided by Shan Yu's defection, the plan went smoothly. No matter what kind of disguise the forces of the Yu Wangfu used, they were all eliminated. The Yu Wangfu suffered heavy losses, and the imperial court's losses were minimized. The general who came to report the situation was one of the generals who had gone on an expedition with Shang Junlin. He knew more about Shang Junlin's visit to the Yu Wangfu's fief than the others. He also knew that Shang Junlin took action in advance today because of a young man. He carefully glanced at the young man standing beside Shang Junlin. The general admitted that the young man had a very outstanding appearance, but he didn't think that His Majesty was a person who valued beauty. Otherwise, how could His Majesty's harem be empty until now when there were so many beauties in Dahuan? Shen Yu didn't know what the general was thinking. He was thinking that tonight didn't seem to be the time they planned to take action. Did Shang Junlin take action in advance because of him? The front courtyard was still noisy. King Yu was shouting about his identity. However, His identity was completely useless tonight. No matter what he said, the guards didn't respond, as if they were deaf. King Yu hated the feeling of being controlled by others. Ever since he came to the fief, he had never been humiliated like this. He wasn't even sure who was the one who did it. The fear of the unknown swept over him. After a long period of smooth sailing, he almost forgot that there was a stronger force above him. Where is Shun Yu? King Yu gritted his teeth. There is another person in my residence. Are you looking for me, Your Highness? A cold voice sounded. King Yu subconsciously looked towards the source of the voice. A young man in blue stood beside the man in black and slowly walked over. He didn't have any shackles on him. King Yu could faintly feel the respect of others wherever he went. King Yu's eyes widened, and he suddenly lost his voice. How could he not understand that Shun Yu had indeed sought refuge with others? He was so shocked that he didn't realize how long he had been staring at Shin Yu. Shang Junlin said unhappily, "Have you seen enough?" The familiar yet strange voice pulled King Yu's thoughts back. He turned his head stiffly and looked at the man beside Shun Yu. Why did he come here? And he was with Shun Yu? King Yu's heart was filled with all kinds of questions. These questions were tangled up and became more and more confusing. Why are you two together? King Yu heard Shan Xingran's incredulous voice. Shan Xingran had been waiting for Shun Yu to be escorted out. He wanted to see Shan Yu's battered and exhausted appearance with his own eyes. He waited and waited. Indeed, he waited. But the scene he waited for was completely different from what he imagined. Shin Yu was carefully protected by the tall man beside him. Not only was she not hurt at all, but there was only respect wherever she went. As for that man, Shun Xingran had been to the palace before. Even if he had never been in contact with the status of Dahuan, he could still recognize that the man in black was the Emperor of Dahuan. The man who refused to look at him and was dismissive of him only showed gentleness in front of Shin Yu. Why? Why? Shin Xingran clamored in his heart. No matter where, Shin Yu would always get more attention. It was like this when he was beside King Yu, and it was also the same when he was the emperor. Shin Yu tilted his head and looked at Shin Xingran. You know him? I. Shin Xingran suddenly woke up. With his current identity, he shouldn't know the emperor of Dahuan. In order to escape from the palace, he gave up the identity of Shun Xingran. If he admitted it, just this point alone was enough to sentence him to death. No, I'm just curious. Isn't young Master Shun the prince's man? Why are you with someone else? Shin Xingran gritted his teeth and asked with concern. Shin Yu retracted his gaze and casually glanced at King Yu. I'm just correcting some mistakes. King Yu's heart trembled. Why did Shin Yu say that? Did he know something? Soon, he knew that he wasn't overthinking. When Shin Yu looked at him again, it was as if he was looking at a dead man. King Yu, why don't you say it yourself? Am I your man? At the same time, King Yu felt a cold gaze fall on him. It was from Shang Junlin. King Yu didn't doubt that if looks could kill, he would have been killed by Shang Junlin countless times. Shin Yu didn't expect him to really answer. He continued. In order to make people listen to your orders, King Yu didn't hesitate to drug them. How many people in the world can do such a thing? Feeling the hand hanging in his sleeve being wrapped by a warm big hand, Shin Yu paused and changed the topic. King Yu was unwilling to submit to others and tried to overthrow the imperial court. I've been with King Yu for several years. Today, I want to accuse King Yu of plotting rebellion. Your Majesty, please investigate carefully. King Yu's face changed greatly when his voice fell. No matter how many protective umbrellas the previous emperor left for King Yu, once he was convicted of treason, there was no possibility for him to rise again. Shun Yu, do you really want to be so ruthless? Don't forget that you've been working for me for many years. You've been in charge of all these things. If you accuse me of treason, don't think you can escape. Seeing that there was no way out, King Yu's face was ferocious. At this moment, his hatred for Shun Yu was greater than anything else. His many years of planning were ruined. Even if he died, he wanted to drag Shin Yu down with him. Shin Yu's face didn't change. Of course, he knew the consequences of his actions. No matter what the reason was, he did those things himself. He wouldn't refute or defend himself. He would do whatever he wanted. From the moment he decided to cooperate with the imperial court, he had expected his end. There was nothing to regret. Compared to letting the person who manipulated him ascend to a position that shouldn't be coveted, this result was exactly what Shenyu wanted. It was a pity that he was destined to be unable to respond. Shenyu used a little strength to break free from the man's hand. He wouldn't delve into what kind of feelings this was. Was it friendship or love? It was no longer important. The young man's hand broke free from his palm. Shang Junlin's heart suddenly sank. He had planned to remove Shenyu from this matter. Who would have thought that the other party already had an idea in his heart? There were so many people present. He directly said it out loud. Did he not care about his own future at all? Pulling Shan Yu's arm, Shang Junlin glanced at King Yu without the slightest emotion. Then, he dragged him away. The man was tall and had long legs. His strides were big. Shin Yu stumbled behind him. He could feel that the man was angry. Why? Was it because of what he said? Suddenly, the man stopped and pressed him against the wall. Shin Yu snorted. Your Majesty is angry? Yes. The man's dark eyes seemed to be hiding a cluster of fire. From now on, without my permission, no one can touch you, including yourself. Genius 1 second. Remember this website. www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website. mbq50. CC. Chapter 273. The man was like an enraged lion. Shinyu could feel the dangerous aura coming from the man, but strangely, he was not afraid at all. Why is he so angry? Is it because of me? There was no need to verify. The answer was obvious. Shinyu raised his head and met the man's gaze. He saw a burning flame in the man's eyes, and this flame was burning because of him. Realizing this, his heart started to beat violently, uncontrollably. After a long time, Shinyu looked away, but Shang Junlin did not allow him to escape. He pinched his chin and made him maintain his original position. You? Remember my words? Shinyu chuckled and raised his eyelids. Why is your Majesty angry? I'm just an insignificant person. Now that King Yu's matter is over, I have no other use. If it's just an act, this play should be over. You think I'm acting? The burning flame burned even more fiercely. Shang Junlin almost laughed out of anger. Do you think it's necessary for me to go through so much trouble to deal with King Yu? Even to the extent of sacrificing myself? The smile in Shan Yu's eyes did not diminish. Otherwise? I'm doing this for you, Shang Junlin said angrily. When his voice fell, the expression on Shan Yu's face froze for a moment, as if he couldn't believe it. For me? Yes. Shang Junlin rubbed the delicate skin on the young man's chin with his fingers, slightly narrowing his eyes. From the beginning to the end, I came for you. As long as you are here, even if King Yu is not here, I will come in person. As if he was shocked by the man's words, Shinyu did not respond for a long time. Looking at the young man who seemed to be in a daze, Shang Junlin felt distressed. He softened his tone and said, You have made a great contribution to King Yu's matter. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for such a person. Take good care of your body and leave the rest to me, okay? Sacrificing himself for King Yu. Shang Junlin sneered in his heart. How could he allow such a thing to happen? Whether he lived or died, King Yu could forget about having anything to do with his Yu. Shun Yu stared fixedly at Shang Junlin. He saw the stubbornness, dominance, and deep affection in his eyes. This man was the Emperor of Dahong. He had everything, but he was willing to put down his status for him. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved, but Shun Yu was also very clear-headed. He was a monarch, a minister, and a minister who worked for a traitor. There were too many things between them. Even if His Majesty doesn't pursue the matter, the court officials won't treat it as if nothing happened. If he didn't care about Shang Junlin, he could let him do whatever he wanted. However, Shun Yu cared. He didn't want this young emperor to bear a bad name because of him. Shang Junlin's heart softened when he felt the young man softening. You? Don't worry. No one will say anything. Your Majesty, you don't have to do this. I will take responsibility for what I did. Before Shin Yu could finish, Shang Junlin interrupted, You betrayed King Yu because of me. If I don't do anything, I will feel uneasy. Hearing this, Shin Yu looked at him with a complicated expression. Your Majesty's ability to invert right and wrong is beyond my reach. Shang Junlin wasn't disturbed at all. Isn't that so? Then you, tell me, why did you suddenly agree with the court halfway? Shin Yu was speechless. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that this matter indeed had something to do with Shang Junlin. If Shang Junlin didn't appear, he definitely wouldn't have turned to the court so easily. You did these things because of me. He also helped me solve a big problem. His merits far outweigh his faults. There's no need to mention the past. The court acted too quickly. King Yu didn't even have time to react before his forces were uprooted. The news of King Yu and King An's attempted rebellion caused an uproar in the court. At this time, the ministers in the court finally knew what the emperor had been doing during this time. They thought to themselves, Your Majesty really doesn't make a move. Once you make a move, it's like a thunderbolt. Shin Yu didn't know what Shang Junlin had done. His identity directly became a person who was ordered to find evidence of King Yu's rebellion in the fief of King Yu. The key was that no one objected to it. After King Yu was arrested, the imperial army cleaned up the remaining forces in the fief of King Yu. After leaving a few officials to deal with the aftermath, Shang Junlin returned to the capital with his people. Shin Yu didn't have time to react before he was packed up and taken into the returning team. Shang Junlin was very busy these days. After that day, Shin Yu didn't see him for several days. However, he was invited by many officials from the imperial court. They didn't have any reaction to his change of identity. It seemed that this was how it should be. Shin Yu began to doubt whether he had really received such a secret edict before he came to the fief of King Yu. Not only him, but his subordinates also had the same doubts. Jiang Huiqing was appointed as a representative to inquire about this matter. On the carriage back to the capital, Jiang Huiqing poured tea for Shin Yu. Young master, those rumors? Shin Yu only knew what Jiang Huiqing asked. Shang Junlin said that he would deal with this matter. Shin Yu didn't care about the follow-up. Unexpectedly, the other party directly made a big move. With the premise that he was ordered to come here, no matter what he did for King Yu before, he couldn't be investigated. Shin Yu picked up the teacup and took a sip. It doesn't matter whether the rumors are true or not. When everyone believes it, the false will become true. Just like now, Shin Yu's resume had become beautiful. When he returned to the capital, he could accept the reward and start over in the capital. I didn't expect that His Majesty would be so considerate for young master. As Shen Yu's confidant, Jiang Huiqing already knew that the young master Lin who interacted with Shen Yu before was His Majesty in disguise. With his understanding of the Emperor of Dahuan, if this matter didn't really happen to Shen Yu, he wouldn't believe it. The more he knew, the more he couldn't doubt His Majesty's intentions. However, Jiang Huiqing was still very worried about his young master. Since ancient times, emperors were fickle. Who knew if today's affection would become a sharp blade that pierced the vital point in the future? Huiqing, what are your plans in the future? His Majesty already knows the inside story of the imperial examination. Do you want to take back the achievements you deserve? It's good for me to follow young master. It's boring to enter the imperial court as an official. Jiang Huiqing was stunned for a moment and answered, Don't worry. You can think about it slowly. Tell me when you've made up your mind. The young man held the hot tea with both hands. The dense steam rose and blurred his delicate eyes. Jiang Huiqing's stirred emotions slowly calmed down. He really didn't want to continue to enter the imperial court as an official. After such a thing happened, it was impossible to say that there was no knot in his heart. The current situation was very good. Shin Yu wouldn't force his subordinates. After all, he wouldn't treat them unfairly. When I return to the capital this time, I don't know what expression Count North will have when he sees me and Shan Qingran. His favorite child became a criminal who plotted a rebellion, and his son, who was not favored since childhood, became a great hero who quelled the rebellion. Thinking of the wonderful expression that might appear on the face of Duke Xinbei, Shin Yu became expectant. Before he returned to the capital, the deeds of Shun Yu had been spread in the capital. The officials who didn't know the truth came to congratulate Count North. Like father, like son. We haven't heard from young Master Shun for a long time. Who would have thought that he quietly made such a great contribution? It's really enviable that Count North has such a son. Count North has a successor. You flatter me. It's just a small contribution. It's not worth mentioning. Count North was happy, but his feelings were very complicated. He had never paid much attention to Shinyu, his son. The relationship between the two fell to the freezing point because of the incident of entering the palace. This time, Shinyu made a great contribution. For Count North, he didn't know whether to be happy or sad. The residents of Count North became lively again because of Shinyu. Outsiders didn't know the inside story and only thought that with such a great contribution in hand, the residents of Count North had a promising future. Some people even asked about Shan Yu's marriage situation, wanting to use the marriage to further deepen the relationship with the residents of Count North. Shinyu knew nothing about this. On the other hand, Shang Junlin was furious when he heard the news from the capital. The hidden dragon guard who delivered the news knelt down. He felt the pressure around him getting lower and lower. He didn't even dare to breathe. Shang Junlin rubbed the letter in his hand. He had indeed neglected this point. Shinyu was old and had made a great contribution. It was not strange that the old foxes in the imperial court would be tempted. After a long time, the hidden dragon guard heard a voice that was neither happy nor angry. Tell Count North that I have my own ideas about young Master Shun's marriage. Tell him not to make a decision on his own. When the Emperor's order came, Count North was already looking for Shinyu. The marriage was a matter between the two families. He saw a few families who had made great contributions in the imperial court. If they were successful, Count North could use this opportunity to improve. The Emperor said. Count North had no choice but to suppress his reluctance. Count North, you don't have to worry. Since His Majesty said so, we can see that he thinks highly of young Master Shun. If His Majesty thinks highly of young Master Shun will definitely make great contributions in the imperial court. Moreover, the marriage arranged by His Majesty will only be better than what we see. You're right. Count North ignored the uneasiness in his heart. He ordered people to tidy up the biggest courtyard in the Count North's residence for Shinyu to live in. Madame Ru, who originally wanted to do something to Shinyu's marriage, was so angry that she smashed everything in the house when she heard the news. Not many people knew that Shun Qingran had escaped from the palace. Shang Junlin didn't care if there was such a person in the palace. Even the people in the Count North's residence didn't know about it. This time, Shin Qingran would return to the capital with a criminal record and give them a big surprise. The carriage was shaking. It was getting closer and closer to the capital. On this day, the weather was clear. The carriages stopped by the river for a short rest. Shinyu had stayed in the carriage for many days. He took the opportunity to come out and get some fresh air. Several ministers who were returning to the capital with him saw him and wanted to talk to him. Suddenly, they saw a man in black walking over and pulling his companions away. Shang Junlin didn't hide his preferential treatment of Shinyu. After getting along with him for many days, it was hard for them not to know. When they saw Shang Junlin coming over, they naturally avoided him and left some space for the two of them. You. Shinyu turned around. Has His Majesty finished his work? Shang Junlin was busy dealing with the affairs of Prince Yu and Prince An. They hadn't seen each other for many days. Shang Junlin nodded and walked towards Shinyu. I heard some news from the capital. A Yu's father is looking for a suitable wife for a Yu. What kind of wife does a Yu want to marry? He's quite a busybody. Shinyu leaned against the tree. Did His Majesty come just to talk to me about this? I came to tell you that I have passed down the order. Your marriage will be arranged by me. The distance between the two of them was getting closer and closer. Shinyu stared at the man for a while. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed the man's collar and pulled hard. What kind of marriage does His Majesty plan to arrange for me? Shang Junlin put one hand on the trunk behind Shinyu and covered the young man under his body. What kind of wife does you want? The two of them were too close. Their breaths were intertwined. Except for Shang Junlin, Shunyu had never been so close to anyone. When the man spoke, his warm breath sprayed on the young man's face. Shunyu subconsciously tilted his head. He didn't know what to think, but he stopped himself from tilting his head. Is His Majesty really willing to arrange a marriage for me? Shunyu didn't know why he asked this question, but this question had undoubtedly broken the barrier that the two of them had tacitly erected between them. Their relationship had been maintained at a very subtle point. If they took a step forward or a step back, the result would be different. Before, the two of them tacitly stopped their relationship at this subtle point and didn't break it. Today, Shunyu tentatively took a step forward. He stared at the man's face and saw that after he said this sentence, the man's eyes instantly darkened. His dark eyes were like a bottomless abyss that wanted to suck the person in front of him in. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading URL, mbq50. CC. Chapter 274. Shunyu curled his fingers in his sleeves. Although he had expected this, he was still shocked when his expectation came true. You is so smart. You can see my intentions. I admit that I don't want to see you get married and have children. Shang Junlin lowered his head and said in a low voice, What does your majesty plan to do? Let me enter the palace? Shunyu raised his eyes. Does you want to enter the palace? Shang Junlin threw the question back. If you doesn't want to, I won't force you. Shunyu had to admit that when he heard this answer, he was moved. Shang Junlin was the emperor. As long as he wanted, he could get anything. If he wanted Shunyu, he only needed to give a signal and a lot of people would be willing to do it for him. Shunyu's opinion was not important. However, Shang Junlin did not do this. He had been restraining himself. He only revealed a hint at certain times. After some time, he would restrain his feelings and leave the choice to Shunyu. Shunyu was right. From the beginning to the end, he was the one who decided to start. Similarly, once he chose to start, the end would not be decided by him. I don't want to enter the palace. Shang Junlin's connivance made Shunyu have presumptuous thoughts. He stepped on the tip of the knife and tested Shang Junlin's bottom line little by little. Okay. Shang Junlin agreed without any reluctance. He was not surprised by this result. Other than entering the palace, I can consider other things. Shunyu was satisfied with Shang Junlin's attitude and continued. What? Before he finished speaking, the young man had already raised his head and covered his lips. A light kiss caused his chest to vibrate violently. Shunyu bit his lower lip. He did not dislike this feeling. For a long time, Shunyu did not feel the man's movements. He looked up and saw the man staring at him. The man's dark eyes showed a rare blank expression. It seemed that he still hadn't realized what had just happened. Shunyu pushed the man's shoulder and said, I'm done talking. Your Majesty, can you let me go now? The man was pushed away a little. Suddenly, he pulled Shunyu into his arms. His strong arms firmly shackled the young man in his arms. Shang Junlin buried his head in the young man's neck. His voice was filled with joy that could not be ignored. Is you the same as Shin? The man was too strong, and Shunyu was a little hurt. He struggled, but couldn't break free, so he didn't care. You've already kissed me. What do you think, Your Majesty? Shang Junlin was overjoyed. He wanted to run a few laps with the young man in his arms. However, he did not do so in consideration of the people around them. Instead, he slowly let go of the young man and lowered his head to kiss him. It was no longer just a touch. This kiss was wrapped in a man's strong feelings, attacking Shunyu like a storm. Her lips and teeth were pried open, and another person's breath invaded. Everywhere it passed, it was carefully occupied. Shunyu closed his eyes and immersed himself in the kiss. Under the shade of a tree, the tall man hugged the young man in his arms tightly, as if he was hugging his only treasure. He would never let go. After a long time, Shunyu was released. He leaned on Shang Junlin's shoulder and slowly calmed down. How does you want to deal with the Count of Jinbei's mansion? Shang Junlin's expression was full of satisfaction after getting what he wanted. At this moment, Shang Junlin was like a fatuous emperor who wanted to win the beauty's smile. It seemed that as long as Shun Yu asked, no matter what request he had, he would satisfy it. I want to leave the Count of Zhenbei's mansion first. Count of Zhenbei should be responsible for raising a child like Shan Qingran. Mentioning the Count of Zhenbei's mansion, Shun Yu's eyes were cold. Shang Junlin knew what kind of life Shun Yu had lived in the Count of Zhenbei's mansion since he was a child. He caressed the young man's cheek lovingly and said, "You can do whatever he wants. Don't worry about anything else." After speaking, Shun Yu and Shang Junlin got along with each other. Shang Junlin didn't want to be separated from Shun Yu for too long. He ordered Shun Yu to accompany him, saying that he wanted to discuss the details of the Prince of Yu's case. He also ordered people to move Shun Yu's luggage over. The people traveling with him were well aware of the truth, but they couldn't change the behavior of the emperor, Shang Junlin. They could only let him do as he pleased. A few days later, they arrived at the capital. The officials of the imperial court who had already received the news came to welcome them with great momentum. Shin Yu stood beside Shang Junlin and looked at the officials who were saluting. He slowly raised the corner of his mouth. On the day he was forced to leave the capital in a defeated state, he never thought that he would return with such a scene. The Prince of Yu and the others had already been sent to prison. With irrefutable evidence, there was no possibility of a comeback. What happened this time could be said to be shocking. Shang Junlin changed his previous style and ordered people to spread the news of the crimes committed by the Prince of Yu and the Prince of An. Everyone in Dahuan knew that the Prince of Yu and the Prince of An had attempted to rebel, as well as various other crimes. For a time, the condemnation of the two was rampant. Compared to this big event, the news of Shun Yu leaving the Count of Zhenbei's residence was not as eye-catching. It wasn't until Shun Qingran's crimes were announced and the Count of Zhenbei's residence was convicted that everyone realized that Shin Yu and the Count of Zhenbei had already reached the point where they couldn't tolerate each other. At this time, Shin Yu had already gained a firm foothold in the imperial court. Moreover, he had made a great contribution in the Prince of Yu's case. The emperor expressed that he wouldn't pursue the matter, so no one dared to use the Count of Zhenbei's residence to attack him. Rebellion was a serious crime that could lead to the execution of 9 generations of the family. What's more, Shin Qingran had committed more than one crime. The Count of Zhenbei had been an official for so many years, and he wasn't innocent. When he was convicted, no one in his family was left behind. After Shin Yu returned to the capital, this was the first time he went to see the Count of Zhenbei, and it would also be the last time he saw this person. The Count of Zhenbei was wearing a prison uniform, and his hair was messy. He was no longer the person Shun Yu remembered. "Do you really hate me that much?" The Count of Zhenbei asked in a hoarse voice. He raised his head and looked at his son, who was respectfully brought in by the jailer. At this moment, he had a feeling that he had never understood this child. "There's nothing to hate. I just don't know how you feel about Shin Qingran, who you have painstakingly cultivated, being implicated by him and your entire family being convicted." Shin Yu knew how to poke at a person's sore spot, so he spoke without mercy. Sure enough, the Count of Zhenbei's face became extremely ugly after hearing his question. "You really don't care about your blood relations? Today you destroyed the Count of Zhenbei for power. How do you know what will happen to you in the future?" The Count of Zhenbei's eyes were about to burst. He was determined to strengthen the Count of Zhenbei, but now the Count of Zhenbei's family ended up like this because of the child he had loved since childhood. "You can rest assured that no matter what, I won't end up like you." The calmer Shun Yu was, the more the Count of Zhenbei wanted to break his calmness. He couldn't accept the current result, especially after he knew that it was all thanks to Shun Yu. Unfortunately, no matter how unwilling he was to accept it, he couldn't change anything. Things were already a foregone conclusion. Shin Yu only saw the Count of Zhenbei. No matter how much the Count of Zhenbei wanted to see him, he didn't go to see him again. Under the large-scale actions of Shang Junlin, the imperial court was in need of people. Shin Yu had real talent and knowledge, so he played the biggest role here. His promotion speed made the officials stunned. However, he did make great contributions one after another. As long as the things were handed to him, He could complete them with the fastest efficiency. The Prime Minister and several other ministers also praised him. After the court, Shen Yu walked out of the palace while talking with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was very optimistic about him. He didn't hide anything when he took him to do things. Shen Yu learned a lot from him and respected him very much. Lord Shen, please wait. Shen Yu stopped. Eunuch Ming trotted over. His Majesty has something to discuss with Lord Shen. Lord Shen, please come with this slave. Since His Majesty has something to do, you can go first. It was not the first time that the Emperor asked someone to stay after the court. The Prime Minister was not surprised. Shang Junlin didn't hide his feelings for Shen Yu, and Shen Yu didn't hide it either. Most of the people in the imperial court who were sensitive had already seen the relationship between the two. The Prime Minister was one of them. The Prime Minister was very optimistic about Shen Yu. He didn't want Shen Yu to get hurt because of this, so he hinted at him. Shen Yu knew that he was doing it for his own good. He accepted the Prime Minister's kindness and said bluntly that the relationship between the two wouldn't affect him. Later, the Prime Minister saw that it was true, so he didn't say anything more. Shen Yu was led by Eunuch Ming to the destination. Since the incident of Prince Yu, there had been a lot of changes in the imperial court. Some suspicious old cases were reopened and retried. Those who shouldn't have been convicted were cleared. This included Jiang Huiqing's involvement in the imperial exam fraud case. There was also Imperial Physician Gu, an innocent person who was involved in a big case and almost lost his life, and his younger brother who was picked up by Imperial Physician Gu. Several of these cases were handled by Shen Yu. After clearing the innocence of these people, Imperial Physician Gu was reinstated to the Imperial Institute of Medicine. He was ordered to nurse Shen Yu's body. With the help of Shang Junlin, Shen Yu was reunited with his relatives on his mother's side. The Jinling in his body had been removed. The Ji family moved to the capital and many of their disciples were admitted to the Imperial Institute of Medicine. This doesn't seem to be the way to the imperial study. Shen Yu looked at the path around him and said, "The flowers in the palace have bloomed. His Majesty invited you to come and admire the flowers." Eunuch Ming replied. Although Shen Yu didn't enter the palace, the servants in the palace all knew that he had an extraordinary relationship with Shang Junlin. They had to treat him as another master. It was spring, the season when flowers bloomed. Shen Yu followed Eunuch Ming around a few corners and saw a man wearing an emperor's robe standing under a flower tree. Eunuch Ming quietly retreated. Shen Yu stood in the same place and didn't move. A gentle breeze blew, and the petals fell. Under the flowers, the young and handsome emperor walked towards him step by step. "His Majesty, why did you invite me to admire the flowers today?" Shen Yu put his hand on Shang Junlin's outstretched hand. Shang Junlin held his hand and walked inside. "Didn't you say that he wanted to paint a spring scene? The scenery here is good. You can paint it." Shen Yu remembered that he had said this to someone before. The person he was talking to wasn't Shang Junlin, and the place he planned to paint wasn't the Imperial Palace. "Where did your Majesty hear this from?" "No matter where I heard it from, you hasn't painted for me before. How can he paint something else first?" Shen Yu laughed. "Your Majesty, why do you want to take the lead in this?" Shang Junlin pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Shen Yu poked his face. "Okay, I will paint here." The painting tools were prepared in advance. Shen Yu sat down and waved his brush. First, it was the spring scene in the garden. Then, it was the two people standing in each other's arms. Shen Yu painted seriously. The feelings of the painter were injected into the painting. The two people in the painting were surrounded by tenderness. The expression of the young man outside the painting became softer and softer. As soon as he put down the brush, Shen Yu was hugged by the man. Her lips were covered and sucked. The two people's breaths blended together. The petals fell and sprinkled on the top of the two people's heads and shoulders. It was a spring scene inside and outside the painting. Shen Yu woke up from her dream and felt the warmth of the man hugging her. The smile in her eyes didn't fade away before it gathered again. The sky was not bright yet. Shen Yu didn't intend to get up. She moved her body and found a comfortable position in the man's arms. She planned to sleep for a while. Her movements woke Shang Junlin up. Feeling the familiar warmth in his arms, the man opened his eyes. The layout of the bedroom was very familiar to him. Looking down, Shang Junlin saw the smile on the young man's face. He got up. You? What are you smiling about? I had a very good dream. Shun Yu hugged the man's waist and rubbed against him. What kind of good dream made you smile when she woke up? This dream was indeed very good. It was so good that Shun Yu remembered her previous life. It was no longer a gloomy dream. Shun Yu couldn't help but think, if the Shun Yu in the other world met Shang Junlin at a different time, would it develop into a good ending? Your Majesty, if I didn't enter the palace that year, would we still be together? Of course. As long as it's a you, I will be attracted. Shang Junlin thought of his dream and said firmly, no matter where a you is, I will find you. And then, I will fall in love with you. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50cc literature mobile version website, mbq50cc. Chapter 275. During the drought for 3 months, the young emperor personally led people to Shishan to pray for rain. After the complicated rain prayer ceremony, the young emperor stepped into the back hall, followed by the palace servants trembling with fear. The young emperor had fought his way out of the battlefield. He was ruthless and stood by his words. No one dared to offend him easily. You want me to come in person? I'm here. When will it rain? Shang Junlin frowned unhappily. Your Majesty, the ceremony is over. You just need to wait. The state preceptor, who had a sage-like demeanor and white hair and beard, stroked his long beard and said, It's ridiculous to say that the drought is caused by my violence. Originally, the state preceptor could arrange the rain prayer ceremony. However, recently, there were rumors that the drought was a punishment for some of the new emperor's actions. In order to prevent the rumors from getting worse, Shang Junlin came to Shishan at the request of the state preceptor. The sun was scorching and the sky was clear. Even if the rain prayer ceremony ended smoothly, there was no sign of rain. Shang Junlin looked at the sky with deep eyes. He knew that the rumors had developed like this because of man-made traces. Since he ascended the throne, none of his good brothers had been peaceful. He had found out that this matter was related to them. He came to Shishan, on the one hand, to reduce the vigilance of those people. On the other hand, he really wanted rain to fall from the heavens. The drought for several months had seriously affected the people's livelihood. In the long run, there would be trouble. The young emperor was looking forward to rain. After nightfall, Shang Junlin dismissed the palace servants and walked alone in the night. The dark night sky was dotted with stars. The stars were shining. It was a beautiful picture, but for people who wanted rain, they only felt disappointed. There was no wind, no clouds, and no rain. Shang Junlin looked back with slight disappointment. It seemed that it would not rain tonight. The man in the gorgeous imperial robe turned around and walked back. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped. In front of him stood a young man in white. Shang Junlin knew very well that there was no one here when he came. This courtyard was the temporary residence of the emperor. It was heavily guarded. Without his permission, no one was allowed to enter. It was impossible for someone to enter without being noticed. What was more, Shang Junlin frowned. This young man was very strange. His body was surrounded by a clear radiance, and his ankle-length hair was whiter than snow. The small part of his face that was exposed was porcelain white, without a single blemish. If such a person had appeared in Mount Shi, it was impossible for Shang Junlin not to have received any news. Hearing the commotion, the young man turned his head around. Shang Junlin stood rooted to the ground. He could not bring himself to ask the question that was on the tip of his tongue. The young man had a beautiful appearance. Under the moonlight, his exquisite facial features were so perfect that he didn't seem like a real person. His long hair that was like snow added a touch of mystery to him, making him look like an immortal who was untainted by the mortal world. I heard someone praying for rain. Is it here? The young man's voice had a strange rhythm, but Shang Junlin didn't have time to think about it, because the meaning of the young man's words was worth pondering. What did he mean by "heard someone praying for rain"? He asked tentatively, "Are you here for the rain?" The young man nodded. Shen Yu was a god that was born from heaven and earth. He had been sleeping for many years and was awakened by a rain-praying ceremony in the mortal world. He woke up from his sleep and was about to find a place that needed rain when he met the emperor of the mortal world. If Shen Yu had met the state preceptor who was in awe of the gods, he would have been treated like a god. However, he met Shang Junlin, the emperor of the mortal world. The emperor didn't intend to treat the immortal with respect. He just wanted to drag the immortal into the mortal world and dye him with his own colors. The hands behind his back moved slightly, and the hidden dragon guards that were hiding in the dark quietly retreated. In an instant, the young emperor's mind was full of thoughts. No matter whether the immortal was real or not, he had to keep him. Shun Yu was invited into the emperor's courtyard. The best tea before the rain was served. Shang Junlin personally poured a cup for the immortal sitting opposite him. Since the immortal was born, he had never entered the mortal world. Out of curiosity about the things in the mortal world, he picked up the teacup and took a sip. He frowned slightly. "You don't like it?" Shang Junlin, who had been observing him, asked. "Is the water you drink so bitter?" Shen Yu didn't like bitter water. He put the jade teacup aside and refused to touch it again. "I didn't think it through." Shang Junlin didn't expect the immortal to be afraid of bitter water. He laughed and ordered the servants to bring in all kinds of snacks. All kinds of snacks were placed on exquisite plates. Some were in the shape of small animals, and some were in the shape of flowers. Shen Yu's eyes were immediately attracted. They are all prepared for you. Try them." Shen Yu reached out and wanted to take one of the peach blossom-shaped snacks. He thought of something and put down his hand halfway. "You are praying for rain. Where is the drought?" He hadn't forgotten the reason why he woke up. He couldn't take the tributes of the mortals as he wished. Shang Junlin mentioned a few places. Without exception, they were all places with severe drought, including the capital. He didn't know how many places the immortal in front of him could rain, so he only mentioned the most severe places. If it's difficult, don't force yourself. The drought has been going on for a long time. There's no need to rush. Shang Junlin couldn't help but remind him. He didn't know why, but he didn't want the immortal in front of him to get hurt because of the rain. "I know." Shun Yu nodded. Because of the long sleep, his power wasn't at its peak. However, the rain he made in these places wasn't affected. "Do you need an altar?" "No, it'll be done soon." Shin Yu wanted to end this quickly. Everything that happened next was like a magnificent dream to Shang Junlin. Silver light that was brighter than the moonlight poured out from the young man's hand and spread around. The young man was in the air. His white clothes fluttered without wind, as if they were one with the silver light. The wind started to blow. Dark clouds gathered and blocked the moon and the galaxy. The young man became the only light between heaven and earth. No one could refuse such a beautiful scene. No one except Shang Junlin knew about such a strange phenomenon. Even though it was the first time Shinyu did such a thing, he knew that some things shouldn't be revealed to mortals. After making sure that every place was taken care of, Shinyu slowly stopped. At the same time, the land that had been dry for a long time welcomed the first heavy rain. "It's raining?" Countless people ran out of their houses and cheered. "It's really raining. His Majesty just went to the mountains to pray for rain today, and it's raining tonight. God is really blessing Dahuan." The people were cheering. They knelt down to thank God and the Emperor who brought the rain for Dahuan. The power of faith that mortals couldn't see gathered towards the two people in the courtyard. Seeing the power of faith enter Shang Junlin's body, Shun Yu was surprised. However, after thinking about it, Shang Junlin was the Emperor of the human world. It was not difficult to understand why he was different from others. Shin Yu didn't think too much about it. After fulfilling the wishes of these people, Shun Yu didn't have any psychological burden to bear when he accepted the tribute. After happily eating a plate of snacks, Shun Yu was a little unsatisfied. Shang Junlin saw it and wanted to order another plate for him. After thinking about it, he changed his mind and said, "It's late now. If there's anything you want to eat, you can ask the servants to make it tomorrow." Shen Yu nodded reservedly. He was an immortal. He shouldn't be greedy for the taste of mortals. "I should leave." Since the rain had fallen and the tributes had been accepted, Shen Yu felt that there was no need to stay. "Don't you want the snacks tomorrow?" Shang Junlin suppressed his irritation because the young man wanted to leave and said softly, "Besides the snacks, there are other kinds of food." After listing several delicacies, he successfully saw hesitation on the young man's face. Shang Junlin continued, "In fact, the drought in Daheng is not limited to the previous ones. There are other places that need your help." Shin Yu decided to help him to the end. Shang Junlin lived in this courtyard alone. There were no other bedrooms. Shang Junlin arranged for the young man to stay in his room and stayed in the study for the night. After settling the young man, Shang Junlin called for the servants and asked them if they had seen anything unusual just now. The servants didn't know what was going on, but they still answered Shang Junlin's question honestly. After asking several people, Shang Junlin confirmed that he was the only one who saw the scene just now. Realizing this, Shang Junlin's heart skipped a beat. The feeling of being treated differently was too good. He couldn't help but want more. Before dawn, good news of rain came from all over the country. Shang Junlin stood in the study and listened to the reports from his subordinates. The places where the rain fell were mentioned by him to the white-haired young man. "Your Majesty, the state preceptor asks for an audience." Shang Junlin was about to see Shin Yu. He ordered people to guard around the bedroom. Without his permission, no one was allowed to go in and disturb the people inside. If the people inside came out, they must report to him immediately. "Come in." Not long after, the state preceptor came in with excitement. "Your Majesty, great news. I divined yesterday that Daheng will survive this disaster safely." "I know." Shang Junlin thought of the immortal who was placed in his room, and there was a faint smile in his eyes. There has been heavy rain in the places where the drought is the most serious. After this, the rumors among the people will be dispelled. The state preceptor talked a lot. He was too excited. After praying for rain yesterday, he was worried and divined, but the divination was not good. After nightfall, he was worried and divined again. The divination changed from the past to great luck. The state preceptor came to discuss with Shang Junlin the follow-up matters of praying for rain. At the beginning, they made two plans. Whether the praying for rain was successful or not, there would be corresponding countermeasures. "The rain prayer ceremony is over. Your Majesty can go back to the palace first." "I am here." "No." Shang Junlin refused without thinking. "There are so many places in Daheng that are affected by the disaster. Now only some places have been alleviated. How can we give up halfway?" "Your Majesty, what do you mean?" "The rain prayer ceremony will continue. You go to check the ancient books and do everything according to the highest specifications." "Your Majesty." The state preceptor did not understand why His Majesty, who had always been dismissive of the gods, suddenly cared about this matter. However, since His Majesty was willing to pray for rain sincerely, he was naturally happy to see it happen. Does the state preceptor think that there are really immortals in this world? According to the records, there should be, but immortals do not easily enter the world. It is difficult to see them under normal circumstances. The two talked for a long time. Because Shang Junlin suddenly became interested in the gods, the state preceptor talked for a long time. It was not until there was movement outside that he stopped. "What's the matter?" Eunuch Ming went out and came back with a young man behind him. White clothes, white hair, and an extraordinary temperament. Just by standing there, he could attract everyone's attention. The state preceptor stood up abruptly and looked at the young man in white in disbelief. Genius 1 second. Remember this site address, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading URL, mbq50. CC. Chapter 276. Your Majesty, this. The state preceptor was trembling and felt that he could not stand properly. This was a real immortal, not recorded in the ancient books, but standing in front of him. The state preceptor had been intelligent since he was young. He was able to take over the position of state preceptor from the previous state preceptor, which showed his ability. Therefore, he clearly realized that the white-haired young man who followed Eunuch Ming was the immortal recorded in the ancient books. State preceptor, you should leave. The state preceptor did not want to leave at all, but the emperor had spoken and there was no room for negotiation. He could only suppress the excitement in his heart and leave. Feeling the pure and majestic power of faith, Shen Yu could not help but look at the state preceptor. Shang Junlin walked down and stood between the two of them. The meal is ready. Shall we eat first? Shen Yu was here for this, so he gently nodded. Eunuch Ming immediately went down to serve the meal. He did not know the origin of the white-haired young man, but from the emperor's attitude towards him, he concluded that he must serve him well. This place is a little small. Come with me. Shang Junlin naturally held the young man's wrist and led him out. The feeling of being in contact with someone for the first time was very strange. Shen Yu tilted his head and looked at the man. What's wrong? Shang Junlin did not seem to feel the problem, and his expression did not change. He did not know that it took all the self-control of the emperor to maintain such an expression. Shang Junlin ascended the throne at a young age and held the power of the world. It was destined that there would be people who would try their best to give him whatever he wanted. Only the white-haired immortal was not bound by the mortal world and could only take things slowly. The man's expression was so calm that Shen Yu felt that he was making a fuss over nothing. He looked at the hand that was holding his wrist and slowly withdrew his gaze. Shang Junlin felt relieved when he saw that the emperor did not intend to blame him for his bold behavior and did not dislike it. Are you mortals always so close to each other? Shan Yu's fingers, which were hidden in his wide sleeves, curled up unconsciously as he felt a steady stream of heat passing through his clothes and into his skin. Only people who are close to me are like this. While they were talking, Shang Junlin had already led them to the dining hall. Everything used by the emperor was of the highest standard. Under Shang Junlin's instructions, the emperor was given the highest quality equipment. The immortal who had been sleeping for many years had never seen such a scene. Looking at the table full of dishes, he couldn't take his eyes off it. After dismissing the servants, Shang Junlin personally explained to the immortal, for this dish, use the freshest part of the belly of the fish, as well as the dishes were introduced one by one, Shen Yu tasted them one by one. Since Shang Junlin was not clear about the young man's preferences, he ordered his men to make a variety of flavors. When he introduced them to the young man, he took note of the young man's preferences. In contrast to Shi Shan's relaxed mood, the atmosphere in the Prince Li's mansion was gloomy and gloomy. Why is it really raining after this prince's good brother went about Shi? Prince Li, who was sitting on the main seat, had a malicious look on his face. Could it be that even the heavens are helping him? Your Highness, please calm down, said a middle-aged man in a Taoist robe. How can this prince calm down? It was you who vowed that it would not rain in the near future, so this prince thought of a way to let this prince's good brother go to Mount Shi in person. And the result? On the night of the rain prayer ceremony, there was heavy rain in several places where the drought was the most serious. The result of this poor Taoist divination is that there will be no rain in a month, no, 2 months, and the drought will only get worse and worse. Su Daozhang. It's not that this prince doesn't believe in your ability, but the news sent back by a fast horse can't be false. It was not easy to have such a good opportunity to take advantage of it. How could Prince Li let it go easily? Your Highness, don't worry. Don't you still have that thing in your hands? As long as you have that thing in your hands, how can a mere rain solve the drought? Su Daozhang said unhurriedly. Daozhang is right. Prince Li suppressed the anger in his heart. I'll have to trouble you for the next matter. Su Daozhang waved his horsetail whisk. About what this poor Taoist said before, Your Highness, I agree. As long as this plan can be carried out smoothly, you can do whatever you need to do. Shang Junlin heard about the abnormal situation in Prince Li's mansion through the mouth of the hidden dragon guards. Find out the secret they are hiding. I want to see what gives princely confidence. Shang Junlin stood by the window with his hands behind his back, and his tone was indiscernible.
Yes.
As if they had appeared, the hidden dragon guards quietly retreated. Is it going to rain today? Since that day, Shinyu felt that he had been worshipped by the emperor of the human world, so he should solve the emperor's problems. But before he could do anything, he was stopped by the other party. Therefore, the rain stopped after a day and a night. The next few days were as before, with the sun shining high in the sky. But at least there was a rain, which meant that they were not rejected by God, and brought infinite hope to the people. No hurry. Seeing Shinyu, the expression on Shang Junlin's face instantly softened. What do you want to eat today? I can't just accept the worship and not do anything. Shinyu thought that he was a very practical god, and was different from the other gods who did not do anything. It's just some food. How can it be considered worship? The real worship is still being prepared. When the time comes, it won't be too late for you to reign. Shang Junlin had already ordered the preparation of the worship. The immortal who was worshipped by him should naturally enjoy the best offerings in the world. After a few days of interaction, Shinyu realized that Shang Junlin could be very stubborn in certain areas, but if he showed even the slightest dissatisfaction, Shang Junlin would quickly change his mind. Until now, Shinyu had been living very comfortably in this place. He believed that Shang Junlin would arrange everything well, so he did not say anything more. It was just raining. To him, it was very easy, and it could rain any time. What he did not know was that Shang Junlin squeezed out a lot of time to accompany him, intentionally or unintentionally preventing others from getting close to him. It was reasonable to say that the news of the miracle in Mount Shi should have spread out long ago, but until now, only the emperor, the state preceptor, and the close servants knew about Shan Yu's existence. Anyone who tried to leak the news was directly executed. The hidden dragon guards surrounded the palace to ensure that no news would spread out. 7 days after the first rain prayer ceremony, Mount Shi was busy again. The state preceptor calculated the second auspicious day and prayed for rain again. This time, it was not only for rain, but also for peace and prosperity. The ceremony was even grander than the first one. With the progress of the ceremony, a steady stream of faith power poured into Shan Yu's body. Shan Yu stood in the courtyard and could see that the entire Mount Shi was shrouded in the golden power of faith. The ancient sacrificial language communicated with the gods, and all living things worshipped devoutly. This was a huge blessing. As a god, Shan Yu naturally knew how to repay this power of faith. The sacrificial process lasted for 4 hours. Except for the beginning, when Shang Junlin was in charge, the state preceptor was in charge of the rest of the process. How do you feel? Shang Junlin walked to the white-haired immortal and asked. Shin Yu turned to look at the man. In order to show his sincerity, Shang Junlin wore the ceremonial robe used for the sacrificial ceremony today. It was red and black, showing the demeanor of an emperor. Do you want a miracle? Shin Yu suddenly asked. After asking, without waiting for Shang Junlin to answer, Shin Yu raised his hand. For a moment, with the altar as the center, the light shone brightly. The soft golden light was not dazzling, and those who were shrouded in it only felt warm all over. It was as if their old diseases were cleared in an instant. Those who were kneeling on the ground widened their eyes and looked at the scene unfolding in front of them in disbelief. Those who were originally standing knelt down in panic. Their hearts were filled with confusion. They could not explain what was happening in front of them. They could only watch in horror and shock. Shang Junlin and Eunuch Ming, who were closest to Shin Yu, felt it more clearly. Others did not know, but Eunuch Ming heard it with his own ears. All this happened after the white-haired immortal spoke. It was self-evident who created the miracle. This is God's will. There was a sudden commotion in the crowd. God bless His Majesty. God bless Da Huan. The golden light spread. Looking from afar, the entire Mount Shi was wrapped in gold. In less than a quarter of an hour, the news of the miracle in Mount Shi spread. The state preceptor, who was standing in the center of the altar, looked down after being shocked. As expected, he saw the white-haired immortal standing beside the emperor. The immortal should have been highly worshipped. The state preceptor began to prepare when he knew the existence of the white-haired young man. Unexpectedly, he was mercilessly refuted after he mentioned it to the emperor. The state preceptor could still remember the expression of the young emperor at that time. His words were full of possessiveness. While he was shocked, it was not that he did not remind him, nor did he not try to change it. In the end, the immortal was protected by the emperor. Even he could not meet him in private. The immortal was willing to send the miracle. It seemed that the emperor did not anger him at present. The state preceptor's heart slowly relaxed a little. From the moment the emperor ordered to change the rain prayer ceremony to a more grand blessing ceremony, the state preceptor knew that the emperor was concerned about the immortal who suddenly appeared in Mount Shi. He did not know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. The state preceptor sighed heavily in his heart and continued to preside over the ceremony. In any case, this miracle brought them too much benefit. Because of the miracle, the ceremony was carried out more enthusiastically. Shun Yu felt the continuous power of faith, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "You don't like it?" Noticing Shang Junlin's complicated eyes on him, Shun Yu whispered, "No, I like it very much." Shang Junlin restrained the complicated emotions in his heart and couldn't help but reach out and touch Shun Yu's head. "Thank you." The young man may not realize what kind of change his spontaneous behavior would bring. As the beneficiary of this change, Shang Junlin would never forget it. Shun Yu couldn't help but rub the hand on the top of his head. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. These days, he had been treated well, but he didn't do anything. He felt very apologetic. Now, he finally did something for his mortal friends. After the ceremony, the golden light did not dissipate for a long time. Shun Yu's hand was held again. "Will the miracle cause harm to your body?" Shang Junlin held the young man's hands and asked him to stop immediately if it would affect him. "No." Shun Yu looked at the crowd bathed in the golden light. "This light is good for the body. You can shine more on it." The golden light around Shang Junlin was more intense than other places. The preferential treatment of the immortal was visible to the naked eye. Shang Junlin felt it, which made him want more. Genius 1 second remember website www.bq50 cc literature mobile version reading URL mbq50 cc. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.